morning, and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning. I am Tom Connors. With me is the boss man, Andre. How are you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm good, and I'm excited about today's stream because we have some awesome guests joining us today, don't we, Tom?
Yes, we do. A regular here at the house, we have Mr. Paul Chato. How you doing?
I am extremely good. Thank you very much for inviting me, as always.
We're always happy to have you. And a very special guest this morning for the first time on Midnight's Edge, actor Clifton. Duncan, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Tom. Andre, Chato, thanks for inviting me on. I've been a long-time fan, so it's a pleasure joining you all today.
Indeed, we're glad to finally get you on the stream here. It looks like you got a few people already saying hello to you in the chat, so hello to everybody out there in the chat.
What's up,
Thank
chat?
you for being here. Hit that like button, share out the link, let everybody know that we're live. For those who don't know, yes, Clifton is an actor. You went to, you were just talking about how you went to NY acting school and
right. Well, it's
some other stuff like that. But yeah, let's get a little bit of your background for those who may not know who you are. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, sure. So I'm what's known as a classically trained professional actor. I got my master's from New York University's graduate acting program, which is one of the top 3 conservatories alongside Juilliard and Yale. And some of the alumni, Sterling Brown, Mahershala Ali, Denai Guerrera, lots of great people went through there. Michael C. Hall from Dexter. And I spent my career doing lots and lots of theater, lots of genres, from musical comedy to Shakespearean tragedy, some television as well. And then in 2020, things happened, and I'm not allowed to act anymore. So now I am a content creator and part-time influencer. I have a wonderful podcast called the Clifton Duncan Podcast on my YouTube channel, and it's a great. It's all about art and entertainment and culture and its society and how they all intersect. Has some wonderful guests on, and I'm getting to meet all the people now that I watch on the internet. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I just read some secret info on you. Born in Germany.
Yes, Heidelberg, Germany.
You didn't mention that.
Yeah, I'm a military brat. And,
I thought
Guten
so.
Tag.
Yeah. And I feel bad because everyone always asks me, "Oh, sprechen Sie Deutsch?" And I'm like, "Nah, man."
No. And then my next question was military brat.
Yeah. So I've been on both in both hemispheres.
And your dad was in which division?
It was my mom. She was in the
Your
Army.
mom.
Yeah. So very sort of worldly. When I was a kid, I had friends from Turkey, Greece, Holland, all, kind of all over the place. And so it was a nice, I call myself a citizen of the world sometimes, which is it's a pretty nice thing to be.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And also
Awesome.
we also have Lauren Taylor, who has some military experience himself, and he also says, of course, military. Heidelberg is great.
Beautiful city.
Which, yes, it absolutely
And as you can see, the chat is sending you a ton of love. They're glad to have you here today, as we are. Speaking of the chat, let's break into some of the super chats we got already this morning before we started the show. Hyperguyver 2 is here, and he says, "I just can't wait to not watch Daredevil and see Punisher get emasculated like every other masculine man in the last half decade." Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit. We finally got some news on the Punisher yesterday, it seems. Although I wouldn't say it's confirmed, but Disney didn't deny it, or they didn't have any comment, let's say, at least to this point that I know of.
He's being replaced by Mindy Kaling.
Probably. Just like everybody else from Liz O'Neill to Mindy herself. Callum Lyle says, "I have this very sinister opinion about body positive and virtue signaling. The people who promote it it's a slow way to tell you to delete yourself." Okay, I think I know what you're trying to say there. Yes.
That's black. Yeah. That's a very dark sentiment.
I don't think people realize that's what they're doing, but yes, they are in a way. Callum Lyle also says, "Does Donnie and Rogan's TMNT genderless now? Because that's a girl's voice. And Rise is awesome. I'm not apologizing for that. No, I'm not asking you to, but I did not care for it, and I think it's part of the problem, Callum. We're not even going to go there. But no, it is a boy. It is a boy doing the voice. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I've been joking, as a lot of people have, that he will be bi now and his name will be Donatelix. But who knows? I'm joking, but I might not be.
Well, what I liked about the trailer is that all the other boys, their voices have kind of changed, and Donnie's is still in the process, so he's cracking. So it was a nice little detail to show that that they are still kids basically, and I thought that was a nice. I chuckled at that little detail.
I couldn't, unfortunately. They're supposed to be teenagers, but I get you. I know some people didn't have so much problem with them as they did everything else, but we may talk a little bit more about that today. We'll see here. We got Final Smash 1689 who says there's absolutely no way the MCU is going to do Punisher or Daredevil. Right. This will be their Jake Skywalker. How do they expect fans to how do they expect fans to like this? Well, that's a good question, Final Smash, and we're going to get into that here shortly. But we do remember that quote from what's his name, Bernthal, where he said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I'm curious how they did it.
That's what he said, but talk is cheap. And looking at who they have writing Daredevil Born Again, I remain unconvinced. But we will get into that in due course. We will get into that.
Then Waltman 4 has a super chat for us, referring to a discussion we had last night that he got us on to. It says, Tom, I want to tell the panel about Adrian Carton de Warriart. I don't know if I'm ever saying that name right. The man with plot armor who frankly enjoyed the war. Yes, he got us acquainted with this historical figure who has literally been in 3 wars, lost tons of limbs, an eye, and all kinds of other things, but just cannot seem to die. He's been in all kinds of situations where he should have been dead 12 times over by now. He's like the real-life John McClane.
Is this some character who is still alive, or is this like
oh
some
no, he's long
figure?
gone now, but he was in like I can't remember what other World War I and a couple other ones too, but he has quite the array of injuries that he's sustained but lived through, and sounds definitely like a character for a Hollywood film, that's for sure. But he's a real person, or was a real person. So there you go. Check that individual out. And then we got Dark Winter who says, will Tom review 2 of the Din and Grogu? Also, does it feel like they had combined parts of both episodes? They would have worked better as a story. I didn't watch that. Did that come out again last night? Is that tonight that comes out? Is there a second episode already of Mandalorian?
Tonight, I think and Picard is tomorrow.
Yeah, I didn't watch the new Mandalorian yet. I'm not rushing to.
I think Mandalorian's tonight. I can't remember.
If it's out, I certainly have not had time to see
me
it.
either.
I was busy writing the next video. So, yeah.
It dropped at midnight last night or whatever, technically?
Yeah.
Okay, 6
that
says
sounds
it's out.
about right.
Well, came and went without a notice in my realm. Dr. Longdongler sends us a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. That helps us here at the channel. And we got one from Midwest's Finest here who says, Clifton, where did you get that shirt from? I need it. Oh, you're muted.
Good. I said all kinds of filthy, disgusting things.
Good.
This was a gift actually from the good people at Unwoke Apparel. I believe it's unwokeapparel.com that you can find their stuff there. They've got a lot of great selections. I got 2 other shirts from them. Well, 3 actually. One is one that just says Unwoke on it. Another one has a picture of Thomas Sowell and it says show me the evidence. Another one that has a New York license plate and it says Unwoke on it. So I like to bust those out every once in a while.
There you go. There's your answer. And then we've got member chat from Orlando Shadow Dragon, who says, Andre, Tom, thank you for keeping me informed every day. You guys are my main entertainment news. Also, WDW Pro, Big Scoop didn't disappoint. Cheers. Well, we have WD coming on Friday. So I think we're going to talk about that new scoop then, right, Andre?
Yeah, so hold that thought till Friday, and we'll have plenty other cool stuff to keep entertained until then.
Absolutely. And then we got one for Clifton here. Callum says, are you ever, or I think he means, have you ever thought about doing anime dubbing? Because I know you have a theater background and you have a great voice. So I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, I've people have suggested voiceover acting. I had a voiceover agent, and then they dropped me for reasons that
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that later. Yeah.
Audiobooks, voiceovers, all that kind of stuff. If I can get a good setup, a decent setup, then I'd be down for that. Yeah.
I can't wait for the audiobook to your book. Clifton Duncan, go fuck yourself. My story in Hollywood.
Communists of color.
Yeah.
The real story of the entertainment
Also known
industry.
as Communists of Color. That's the movie working title. Yeah.
Because there are so many of them.
Yeah. Jonas J. Campbell's in the house. How you doing, Jonas? A writer for Park Place over there and a good friend of ours. Says, Clifton, saw you on Collabin' a while back. Great.
So, Jonas, thanks a lot.
There. Yeah. And then we got Nick here, all 32 flavors of him, who says, hail panel, mods, and chat. Give Midnight's Edge a thumbs up on the stream and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning, Clifton. That's right. Thank you, Nick. Nick is with us on Midnight's Edge After Dark. You can find us there every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. We got Eclipse Warlord who says, how does Seth Rogen get involved in a kid's cartoon? There's no way he's involved in will be kid friendly. The bad messaging needs to stop. Well, that's a good question for Clifton. Here's a jump off point. How do guys like Seth Rogen keep going in Hollywood? I mean, clearly after things like Santa Inc., after some of the crap he's said, he hasn't really done anything that I would say of any significance that I could point at and go, here, this guy is a big deal. I mean, like, what is it with guys like him?
Let's not forget Sausage Fest. Let's not forget
Sausage Party was, I don't even understand how that was even remotely a hit, and he's getting a sequel series, but yeah, there you go.
Well, you know, I mean, the industry is very heavily reliant upon what I call R&R, which is relationships and reputation. And, you know, Seth's been in the game for a long time, you know, as a writer and a producer, and whatever pool of relationships he had, it seems maybe he expressed a desire to, you know, make a new Ninja Turtles project. And, you know, he was able to move mountains and get the clearance or the green light to do it. You know, but it's really strange because you see a lot of people who fail upwards despite, like, it's weird, but I think about Ben Affleck. Remember when he was like, they're trying to push him as the leading man, and then he did like Gigli, and that destroyed his career for like a decade. And then he had this great sort of hero's journey return arc. It's like it used to be where you if you flopped a lot, that was like the end of your career. But now, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be as people just seem to keep failing upwards. So it's a tough question to answer. I'm not sure why, but my knee-jerk response is that he probably wanted to do it and knew all the right people to make it happen. And you know, maybe he pitched it and his view on it, his take on it, and they liked it. So then they made it.
Yeah, but it's not just Ninja Turtles. I mean, he is involved in just about everything. He's in the new Mario Brothers. He pops up all the time in movies, and I'm like, why is he here? Like, you're right. He must know everybody or something in Hollywood that, you know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, if he's even if people in the general public find him annoying, he probably has a lot of friends in the industry. So it's not, again, if you're a jerk, people will put up with it if you're bringing something really, really fantastic to the table, or you have a name already behind you. And you know, I mean, I would assume I've never heard anything bad about Seth Rogen, at least behind the scenes. I assume he has a lot of friends, and he just, you know, he's really working on producing stuff, and that's where he wants to take his career. It's tough to say.
It's a good question though, because like I said, I just don't understand the appeal of him.
It's what Clifton said. It's relationships. It's not your appeal and what you think of him. He's actually gone through quite a metamorphosis. He's no real fan of the Jewish community either. He's pissed us off. So I don't know. He used to be funny.
Yeah, he was funny in like one movie.
No, he was pretty good for a bit.
Okay,
the world one was pretty funny. I enjoyed that.
Obviously, has friends in the industry, and he has made them a lot of money. That's really,
are people
gist of there is.
Do people quickly forget that he is responsible for the Sony hack? Like, it's the other thing. He destroyed careers.
I think they forget. I don't think that they blamed him for that.
How was he responsible for the Sony hack? I missed that.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone is blaming him for that.
It was his movie that was the whole thing at the bottom line of it all. Did everybody forget that already? Like, the interview was the whole point of the whole thing. That they didn't want him to release it. and they did anyway. So they hacked
Oh, this is
Sony
the
because of it.
this is the North Korean movie or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He never faced any blowback for that within the industry.
That's what I'm saying.
Never.
He has never gotten any blowback for anything, period. He even was able to walk away from Franco without any problems.
Yeah, Franco is still in the doghouse.
You know what they say? It's all about who you know.
Yep.
Exactly.
And what you know on them.
And Rogan is obviously living proof of that. But, gentlemen, let us move on. But on the topic of who you know, before we get started with the topics proper here, we have our mutual friend Robert Meyer Burnett. And Mr. Chato, you had an interesting discussion with him yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, had a fantastic discussion with him. We talked about Star Trek, which is one of my biggest loves. So it was a fun evening, but the impetus for the discussion was Paramount has brought out an ad. I think it's not a poster, but it's an ad celebrating 50 years of Star Trek. And there's one Star Trek character that is conspicuously absent from the ad. And we had a contest if people could guess which Star Trek character was missing from the ad. Can you blow that up there?
Yeah, I could try. I don't know how much bigger it'll get. There we go.
Anyways, so
it's usually obviously it's always the same one who's always left off. Let's be real.
And we were trying to guess why, and I have a theory.
Oh, we have several, but what's your theory?
So obviously Captain James T. Kirk is missing from the ad, which I think is hilarious. My theory is that they gave 2 characters to TOS and a third would have been too much.
So you leave Leonard Nimoy off.
Every other individual is in their own self-contained Star Trek. They represent their era of Star Trek. So to add Kirk to Uhura and Spock would have been just too much. But to have Berman in the middle with the Star Trek arrow specifically pointing at her, my least favorite Star Trek character, that was too much for me.
See, you pointed out the part. Here's the thing, Paul. Like, I could forgive it if Spock was in the middle, right?
Sure.
I get it. Spock is kind of like one of those icons. It's almost as iconic as Star Trek itself. Like, people see Spock, they instantly know who he is, whether they've seen Star Trek before or not. What you just pointed out is what bothers me the most. And that is who is dead fucking center. And like you said, getting pointed at even with the arrow there. And that's the part of the problem here. And this is what they've been toting from day one. And we got like the Lower Decks crap in there and the Prodigy crap in there. Like anybody gives a shit.
Get rid of the cartoon characters and stick Shatner in there. I mean, how absurd is this picture?
It's also just so petty. Like, I mean, it's
I agree.
How are we not going to notice? How you have a Star Trek promo and not include Captain Kirk? I mean, look, and I'm not even a Trek guy. Like, I watched some Next Generation when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it. But I mean, even if you don't watch Star Trek, if you don't think of Spock first, you think of Captain Kirk, James T. Kirk, and William Shatner. It's just his exclusion from this ad is just. It's unbelievable. But I do love my friend William. I do love his reaction, which is like, are you surprised? Or he's run out of F's to give at this point, which is hilarious.
Well, good for him. I mean, it doesn't do him any good to go after these people. He's going to be 92 this month. And Robert and I were celebrating the Shats, and we were talking about some of the Canadian sci-fi that was done, and of course he knows I'm Canadian, so we were talking about all that stuff. Jimmy Doohan and lots of Canadians in the Star Trek universe. So yeah, this was funny, but I mean, put one of the Lower Deck cartoons in there instead of Berman.
There's also something insidious about it, and I've been talking about this a bit more lately is when you have racial minorities, sexual minorities, and women now, they're basically being used as cannon fodder in the culture war. So what happens is they put, I don't know what the actress's name is, the Michael Burnham actress, front and center. And what happens is as soon as you say, well, where's Will Shatner? Then they call you a racist and a misogynist. And, that's sort of the game now. They can keep installing these people.
Correct.
And putting them, in front of audiences. And when audiences give their justifiable pushback, which is almost never, explicitly bigoted in any way, then it becomes you're a bunch of bigots and Nazis and fascists. And on top of that, you're dealing with these performers who, it's a tough business. You're not going to turn down the gig if you get the lead in Star Trek. You know what I mean? They're not giving themselves these jobs, but if they subscribe to this worldview, right, which is that they're oppressed and discriminated against, then they're going to receive all of this feedback negatively from fans as like, well, look, it's reinforcing this belief that the world is out to get them. And so it doesn't serve the public. It doesn't serve these actors at all. It's just really, it's good intentions, obviously, but I think we're at a place now where audiences are seeing actors who aren't white or who aren't straight or whatever. And their knee-jerk reaction now is to sort of assume that they're not there for, because of their appeal or because of their talent. It's because, they happen to check the right boxes. And it's as someone who is a performer, or at least who was, I've had to go back and reevaluate my own career and think to myself, well, how many jobs did I get? Because I'm someone because I wanted to make white progressives feel better about themselves, basically. Not me wanting to. That's what it is. That's basically what it is. And it does a disservice. If you've got, I've got 20 years of experience in elite training. I don't need a handout. I call it cultural welfare, basically. That's what it is. And it's like Denzel never needed that. Viola Davis didn't need that. Alfred Woodard never needed any of that. Lawrence Fishburne never needed any of that. Billy D. Williams, James Earl Jones, all these guys never needed any of that. At a time when arguably, there were problems in the industry as far as access and opportunities. But now they're all over the place. And I think there's sort of a collective yawn. Even somebody like, talking about Jonathan Majors right now. And people are like, yeah, but I can see them trying to kind of astroturf him, and he might actually be really great, but we don't know now because we're in this fog of the culture war, where we can't really assess what he really brings to the table because there's so many presumptions about, well, why, we can't really enjoy him for what he is. I will say, excellence does tend to trump any of this nonsense. So I think talent does still win out in the end. The problem is that it's so rare.
Well, I did a video on the notion that the actors such as Sonequa, who is a beautiful woman, and I you can't tell how well she's acting because the writing is so wretchedly bad on that show. So I'm not going to diss the actor who's playing Burnham. Sonequa, she's saddled with it. I've seen interviews with her where she loves what she's doing, etc. Yeah. And same with Moses Ingram in Obi-Wan, where she got a lot of heat, but that was also a wretchedly badly constructed and written role. And and what I found offensive was that in the case of Moses, Disney was hiding behind her. They were using her as the shield, which I did a video on this. And also Sonequa, Paramount put her out as their race shield. No one's talking about that. That is offensive. Don't write shitty dialogue for this person of color that you're trying to lift up and demonstrate your diversity initiative, and then make them take the fall. I found that the most offensive thing.
That's it right there. You nailed it.
Well, let's be true. The real reason I'm not on the poster is because I'm too big of a star for the rest of them. Let's be real here.
Of a star. What are you talking
I don't
about.
talk like that in real life, Paul. I don't know where you're getting this from. Priceline.com.
So yeah. Anyways, I rarely I did a video on don't blame the actor, and I got pillared for that too, because everybody wants to blame the actor.
Well, also on top of that, it does a disservice to the actor in terms of their craft. Yeah, one of the, it's a very sort of paradoxical and challenging discipline, but it's really rewarding when you are able to tackle, great work, meaty characters, complex characters. They have an emotional journey. They have. It's classic storytelling, right? Story structure. You want to play great roles because great roles make you better. They make you better as an artist. And if you're, TV is already kind of, it can be a tough if you're looking for, if you come from like the theater or whatever, you have sort of, you're a snob a little bit. It can be tough, but you get into it. Some people get into it because they want to be famous or whatever, but there's a lot of people who get into it because they genuinely enjoy the work and they find it engrossing, they find it enriching and fulfilling and satisfying. And while it's great that they are able to build their careers and make lots of money, I never begrudge anybody that. At the end of the day, they're also, I think, it does a disservice to show up on set for these long days and have to keep investing yourself in material that you have to know that it's not really working. I mean, if you're a smart actor, you know that it's bad.
Sure.
Right. So, and I've done so much stuff where I'm just like, oh, this is just,
it's painful.
I'm sure there's,
I need the insurance weeks.
Right. Like, I'm sure that's part of the game as an actor. There's a lot of roles you have to take just to pay the bills. And then you just got to keep your head down and do the role and move on to the next thing.
But the young actors are so politicized that they think that they are part of a vanguard and many of them use the word represent.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they're capable of understanding how bad the writing is.
Well,
they should just shut up. I mean, they should thank their God for the role, do the best job they possibly can, but don't go knee deep into the.
I'm not sure that's the advice that their agents give them.
Oh, especially Cryborg.
Their representatives and the studio they're working for are probably feeding them talking points that, yes, we want to show the world how virtuous we are. So this is exactly what you're going to say, because there are so many actors repeating the exact same talking points that I refuse to believe that they all independently came to the exact same thing.
They all have the same agent.
I believe someone is feeding them the talking points.
No, I push back on that because it's very, I use this word. It's not. I don't think it's the right word for it, but it's sort of cult-like. You sort of, as a prerequisite for success in many ways, you sort of have to subscribe to a certain set of beliefs. And if you stray from that, there's so many actors who are, who don't subscribe to this sort of quote unquote progressive vision of the world, but they stay completely silent because they know that if they say anything, then that they're going to jeopardize their careers. So part of it is this hostility against anyone who thinks differently. But a big part of it is that, a lot of people, and I experienced this, when I was in it as well. It's just people, they genuinely, they don't think differently. When Obama was president, for instance, a lot of my criticisms of him and his administration actually came from further left than, further left to the left of Obama, basically. And they were inspired by like progressive sources at the time. And yet, even then, it was like, oh, wait, is he a Republican? And so that's the sort of mentality, right? Or even if you're an independent-minded person, you're not allowed to be that unless you're already successful. Matthew McConaughey can go on Jordan Peterson's show because he's got his Oscars already.
Right.
Kelsey Grammer can go on Fox because he's had his career already. He still has his career, So it's. But if you're a young person who's coming up, I think generationally, as you were saying, Chato, they're so politicized and they've been indoctrinated in their quote unquote education system to see the world in a certain way. There's an extraordinary video on YouTube where there were some kids from NYU actually, and it was in Washington Square Park, which is right near NYU Tisch. And this guy just was walking around with a camera and a microphone, and he went up to this group of kids, and I recognized that they were NYU actors. One of them is John Connie's son, who was in Black Panther, who played Black Panther's dad or whatever it was. So, and who was in the program at the time. And this guy just goes, well, men and women are different. And one of the girls begins tearing up and crying. And the guys step in, the boys, they step in and say, hey man, back off. I'm also told that, when I was in the program from 2006 to 2009, one of my reasons for going to the program was to become what's called a transformational actor, right? It's we love as an audience watching actors transform into different people, into different roles. It's a very virtuous, to see their virtuosity. You know what I mean? That's part of the joy of watching great performers. But now what I'm told is that you're not even allowed to say transformational actors anymore. Why? Because it might be offensive to certain sexual minorities. On top of all of that, Chato, you mentioned that they don't even recognize the scripts are bad. They're decolonizing a lot of these programs. So are you reading the great classics, the Greek plays, the Shakespearean plays? Are you working on those? And if you can do Shakespeare, you can do anything. You know what I mean? And if you're not studying that, if you're not getting your chops around that language, and if you can work your way through Hamlet, then when someone hands you some jargon-heavy script from a medical procedural or a lawyer show or a cop or whatever, it's easy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have people who have developed their aesthetic and their tastes and their skill and their craft, then of course they're not going to be able to appraise whether or not a script is decent or good. I mean, what do they care? And also, if it ticks all the right political buttons, or sends the right message, that almost supersedes everything. So there's a very big problem right now, and I think the machine, I think we need to build new machines because the one that we have right now is so obviously dying for a lot of reasons.
And the schools are only worse. My daughter went to a audition-based high school called the Etobicoke School of Arts, which was just brilliant, which had painters, actors, singing and dancing, and musicians and so you had to audition to get in there. And it was the most diverse environment you could possibly think of, and more gay kids than you could throw a stone at. I mean, it was just
careful, they might get the wrong idea with that.
Great, bad choice of words. But when you spend as much time in show business as I have, you're surrounded by let's call a variety of people.
Yes.
And who are very good at gossiping, which is one of my favorite things, especially when they're doing your hair. So and then recently, the school board, which has gotten so ultra woke, it now has turned it into, because auditioning was hurting people's feelings, and it is now a lottery. Which what's the message that they've given the kids? Your talent, your skill, the amount of effort you've put in to get to where you are is now meaningless.
I loved your reaction there, Clifton.
Luck. And the luck of what is that teaching? That is less fair. And recently, again, the most diverse school I have ever been. Rainbows of colors of everybody, ethnicities and everything. They had a special session for only Black LGBTQ plus students, of which there were like 3 in the picture.
Well, it's really,
it's crazy.
Well,
school was already diverse.
well, the industry was as well. I mean, you mentioned one of the sort of cool things about being in the industry or the arts in general, as you meet so many different kinds of people from so many different walks of life, and but it's hilarious to me because literally from the time I was 17 years old, so this is over 20 years now. No one has. Usually, people say like, what's your plan B? Or you'll never make it. But for me, people encouraged me from the very, very beginning. So when I see people who talk about the industry as racist, I'm like, well, maybe you just suck and you can't get work. But going back to what you were saying, Chato, it's already, the industry is unfair. It's not a fair industry. We're sort of at the lottery, right? So talent does matter, skill does matter, but it doesn't matter as much as just sticking around and, frankly, just dumb luck. The audition for that big project, that your big break comes down. Are you available right? Well, are you available for the audition? Does your agent have a great relationship with the casting office?
Right.
Can you make it on that day? There's all kinds of things. Any job you get is a miracle. There's one British actor who said sooner or later your competition just dies. That's kind of how it is. You're there, and that's why for most actors it takes 10 years of doing stuff, and then they get that one job that breaks them through, and then it's like, oh, they're an overnight success or whatever. But the idea that auditioning hurts feelings, yes, they always have, and they always will. It's auditioning. For people who don't know, I mean, most actors, they spend most of their time, most of their lives, their working lives, trying to get work. An audition is basically like a job interview. I try to analogize it by saying that imagine if you're trying to get a job at a restaurant and you have to learn the menu. And if you have 3 or 4 auditions a week, you have to learn 3 or 4 different menus and then present them, to the producers, the casting people, or whatever. And you could give the best presentation that's ever been given of any of the material. And yet, if you're too tall, if they already, if the casting person or the writer or whatever doesn't like you for some reason, there's so many reasons that you don't get a job, and then but you poured your heart and soul out into this material.
It's irrelevant. It's type. They hire on type, especially
for TV and film. Are you that they don't want to see you acting. That's the thing. You need to be the part when you walk in that room, and so it's a numbers game. And so the idea that you're going to hurt you feel bad because auditioning is hard. Yes, it is hard. But
it's a different craft.
Shitty.
You have to learn. Acting is a craft. Learning how to audition is a craft.
Yes.
They are 2 separate things with different rules. Like when I was going out to auditions, I started getting almost every single job because of one thing. Well, 2 things, but the one main thing is if I walked into the room and the room was not filled with people who looked like me, like if I walked into a room and I did nerd roles, believe it or not, Clifton, just not to shock you. But if I walked into the room and it wasn't filled with skinny nerds of any race or color, I would leave. I wouldn't even audition. If I walked in the room and everybody looked like me, then I would audition, because I knew that the people knew what they wanted. It's when they don't know what they want. That's what drove me nuts.
And there are interesting exceptions to that as well. I mean, there's that classic story of when Dustin Hoffman auditioned for The Graduate, and I think Robert Redford was like the ideal for the role, as the novel was written. And apparently, and they said, he came in and gave this audition that was like the best audition that we've ever seen. And then Dustin comes in, and he's really nervous. He's sort of kind of unfocused, and not all over the place. But I mean, Dustin Hoffman is a very neurotic person, an actor, which is part of his appeal. And apparently, he left the audition and he just felt awful about himself. I mean, we all have those times where we're like, I wish the earth would just swallow me up, But apparently, they said, he was so compelling and so magnetic on camera in his like sort of effed upness that's why they cast him. And you can see some of it in the film. There's that great sequence where what's the woman's name? She's so hot in that movie, Miss Robinson. I can't think of her name. It's such a shame.
Miss Mel Brooks too. I can't think of her name either.
Jesus.
But there's a scene where she's sitting on the bed, and like I think
Bancroft.
She's like Bancroft. Where she's like disrobing, and she's seducing him, and then Dustin Hoffman, he goes to the back wall and just starts pounding his head into the wall, facing away from the camera,
which ends up being the poster shot, actually. But yeah.
Well, and the thing is, he said, he's like, that was me being frustrated with myself as an actor. I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. And so I took out my frustration by banging my head on the wall. And And Mike Nichols, the director, was so smart that he left it in the movie. It seems so, but that's sort of what it is, right? So you have these situations where, yeah, you know, the safest choice is usually picked or is usually hired, not necessarily the best choice. But then you have people who are smart enough to recognize, wait a minute, there's something there that's unique about that person, and they can bring something unique to the role, even though I hadn't envisioned this before. And you know, but I don't know if the industry is structured right now where it can allow for that kind of, I don't know if the kind of actors who can do that and allow themselves to kind of be messy in a way are even, you know, are even around anymore. And you know, and do they have, are there people who can recognize, wait a minute, this person was not what I envisioned, but they're bringing something interesting and they can really make this sing. So I kind of got in the weeds on that in a little insider baseball, but you know, I mean, auditioning is a part of the job, and you just never know. You know, you could nail it and not get the job. You could bomb it and still get the job.
Correct.
So, you know, and it's again, we're at the casino basically. So the idea that you're going to feel bad because auditions hurt your feelings, well, tough shit. Get a new profession. God, I hate these kids. I don't want to work with any of these people. You know what I mean? They're so soft. They're so pampered. They're so pretentious. They're so arrogant. They don't know anything, but they think they know everything, and they suck. They're no fun to work with or to watch. Why would I want to work with anybody like that? That's my rant. I'm done.
I liked it. That's good.
No, and it was a great rant.
There's a certain sameness to the cast that everyone seems to be hiring in this.
Yeah, they're all Seth Rogen.
Well, there's no Seth Rogen. That's the point, is that
he's in
they're uniformly attractive people. When you watch British shows, you've got people with bad teeth and old people and just a wonderful variety of types. You watch American shows and there's fewer types in a show.
Yeah.
You take a look at the National Treasure show, where all the kids are just good-looking young people. I would never cast it that way.
Yeah, it's very boring. I remember I was watching, this is a few years ago, but I was watching Luther and the British version of Law and Order. And just what you were saying, I was so stunned at the variety of people I was seeing on screen. And it was actually really nice because you get these casting breakdowns, right? And almost all of them say, you know, character name, age range, ethnicity, or now it's open ethnicity, whatever, you know, or increasingly it's, you know, masculine presenting, whatever, you know, bullshit. But then the next word will be like, you know, good looking, handsome, you know, beautiful. And I'm like, dude, there is, from an economic perspective, there is wisdom in hiring attractive people, right? Both men and women want to watch people who they find attractive and appealing in some way. But at the same time, when I watch these British shows, I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, but these look like, I feel more connected to this world because they look like regular people. You know what I mean? And you know, not everyone is glamorous. Not everyone needs to be, not everything needs to be perfect. Not everyone needs to look like a model. That's not real life. I mean, I know it's not, you know, we're elevating, you know, we're not dealing with real life, basically, you know, larger than life figures and Hollywood and on camera. But, you know, I think it's leading to this sort of thing where everything has to be kind of perfect and managed, and it creeps its way into other mediums as well. I mean, I had worked with a director who said that, you know, if Nina Simone or Billie Holiday were to audition for like The Voice or American Idol or you know, whatever so-and-so got talent today, they would never make it past the first round. But you have a bunch of people who look good and they sound good, but they don't really move you on a deeper level. And that's a big part of the problem right now, I think.
Well, I've said many times that the craft of movie making has been lost in the United States. If you take a look at the old movies, they would have the star who was generally speaking, the attractive individual, and they would surround them with character actors that were less good looking. It was a giant valley of actors that would all funnel to the star. The Hollywood no longer knows how to make, encourage, and grow stars anymore. And that's one of its problems.
Do you think that it's because of the fall of the studio system?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. And also this notion of youth, this drive for for youth. The studios knew how to nurture their stars, and they would pick one. And the character actors, none of them complained about the fact that they weren't stars. They were just really happy to get work.
Well, also, I mean, character actors, I mean, they can work forever. You know, it's like kind of a really great, for those who don't know, you know, when we talk about character actors or like leading men and women, there's sort of a distinction in the industry or in the business. Maybe it's not the same now, but, you know, the character actors, maybe like a Seth Rogan, to bring it back, would be like a character actor.
Yeah,
whereas a Henry Cavill or Idris Elba would be like a leading man.
Yep. They don't know how to manage that opportunity. Next.
Speaking of Seth Rogen.
See how I did that there? I had to bring it back.
It's funny because, you know, we've been talking a lot about this new Ninja Turtles thing because of the whole Liz O'Neill thing, as I dubbed her now. Because we do have diversity in other areas as far as this goes, but it's used in ways, as far as I'm concerned, are not good, or at least don't help the overall story or add to the character. You have a situation with April now where everybody's talking about that. But there's more angles to it, isn't there, Andre?
There is indeed, because there was some diversity, even in the original Turtles animated series, that many just never noticed because it was so natural, so organic, and such a non-issue, such color blindness, the way it's supposed to be. Take it away, Tom.
And we're not talking about James Avery doing the voice of Shredder, which was of course, you know, iconic. But we are talking about the character of Bebop. If people watched me the other night when we were discussing this, I brought up that they race swapped Bebop too, but nobody's saying shit. Well, somebody said shit. And I just wanted to comment. I did say something about it. I was not too happy that Seth Rogen is playing what was initially a black character.
If it makes you feel any better, Bebop was voiced by black people, J.B. Smoove in the 2012 series, and Gary Anthony Williams in the Out of the Shadows movie.
But
and his human form was black in the 80s animated series.
See.
And now in this movie, Bebop is Seth Rogen.
But of course, he's saying that nobody's griping about it. I did. I griped about it. I know a few other people who did.
I thought he was Rocksteady specifically because Rocksteady always was white. I mean, how does he get away with that? I mean, Bebop was always black.
Yeah, he was the operative word. And this is what I said to you guys before. I said, no. I kept telling people he's playing Bebop, but everybody's like, no, he's playing Rocksteady. I'm like, all right, we'll find out. And what is he doing? He's playing Bebop. Because of the Warthog. And why do you think he's fat now?
Is Seth Rogen one of the turtles?
No, he's playing Bebop.
Yeah, exactly. So they race swap to Bebop so that Seth Rogen can play him, which is all kinds of ridiculous.
Hell, this is such... Yeah, my parents went through the war just so we can discuss this.
But Jonas is not wrong about Black Nerd. Yeah, that's the funny thing, is that's his name too, Black Nerd Comedy, by the way. Yeah. For those who didn't know who
he's good.
An image of.
I like his show.
He used to be really good. I kind of fell out of his he got a little too shilly, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
You don't like anyone. Well, I can hardly wait for you to turn on me, Tom.
Just wait.
I will never get sponsored by Skillshare. I'm just telling you.
Someone in the chat.
Are you saying that because we were sponsored by Skillshare?
Not saying a thing.
Is this the one you were laughing at there, Clifton? Yeah, I figured as much.
That's hilarious.
That is wrong.
The internet is hilarious. It wins every time.
But anyway, Andre, on that note, you had April is Velma 2.0 in the title. So let's jump into that subject real quick here, because what did you have in mind there?
Because we discussed this on Monday, both on the morning show, and there was a great debate on it on toxic femininity. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, Clifton, since we have you here, because no one minds diversity. What everyone minds is diversity gone wrong. And diversity gone wrong is when you basically go into a brand new kind of stereotype and caricature. I mean, if you just had made April O'Neil black, that would have been one thing. Still wouldn't have been a great thing, because I think we've had a little bit too much such swaps lately, but that would have been better. But
it's almost cliche now, basically. Yeah,
exactly. It's cliche, but on top of that cliche, they add another cliche by making her, dare I use the term, dumpy. And
say homely.
Fine, homely. That's
it's
what I
Rose
said the whole
Tico
time.
2.0, yeah, or as you put it, Velma 2.0.
Yeah, like with Rose Tico, they dress her in a potato bag and make her look like an activist, and yeah, fine, they make her look very homely, to use that term, with everything that goes with it.
Like even the girls pointed out, there's nothing in her outfit that really screams April O'Neil to begin with, too, on top of it all, like beyond that. So even if you were trying to do some version of it, like most of the girls didn't even realize this was supposed to be April.
It's just so lazy. That's the thing, you know. It's more
like Oprah O'Neil. I mean, seriously.
That's funny. You know, because I was thinking, like, did anyone really complain when Michael Clark Duncan was cast as Kingpin?
No.
Very little, because
most people said he was the best part.
I mean, he was the best part of the movie, because no one could embody the physique that is required for the Kingpin to have, because that was the defining part of the Kingpin. Wasn't that he was white, it was that he was a big, burly guy who could be all muscle and who appeared very fat, but in reality was just pure muscle.
D'Onofrio was pretty damn good. Let me just add, D'Onofrio was a damn fine.
They did amazing with D'Onofrio, and D'Onofrio was I think in the end, the best Kingpin. But here's like the thing: if you see the two next to each other, and you had to put money, who is going to be standing up after 5 minutes in the ring between those two? Yeah, I'd put my version on the 2000. Put my money on the 2003 version. Even if
what drives me nuts is that they don't even want women to be sexy of any color. Why couldn't she look like Foxy Brown?
That would have been a completely different matter,
dude. So I've told some of my actress friends, I'm like, you just watch. They're going to start talking about beauty privilege, and you're going to stop getting cast. I'm serious. You're going to stop getting cast because you're too attractive. You don't want to attract the male gaze, right? You don't want to musical theater male gaze. You don't want to, you don't want to be too appealing, because because then you're appealing to Western European standards of beauty, and that's oppressive, and you're triggering people who look homely, and on top of that, what kind of alluding to what you were saying, Andre. I mean, look, just her design. Sure, you go to a coffee shop in New York City, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe or something. You'll see someone who looks like this, definitely, but. Just as where, and it's funny because Black Americans have very, very, I'd say more rigid, even more socially conservative views about gender in a lot of ways. And, so I see these race swaps, and they'll have, it's just, let me backtrack. I'm not making any sense now. It's when I see this picture, I see this is how these people see us.
I kind of figured that's where you're headed to, yeah.
And like I said, there are people who look like this, but if you're going to have a black or a race swapped April O'Neil, why would you make her look like that? And it's a very
the L word.
Laziness?
No, that's not
or scissoring.
Lady in comfortable shoes. Yes,
maybe scissoring. But why doesn't she look like Pam Grier? And let's have fun with it.
Yeah, no one knows who Pam Grier is now, but
I do. Yeah, we do.
Because I'm a fan of the film.
No, but I think Clifton's onto something here, and I think that's kind of what. I mean, he can say that some of us necessarily can't say. Not so much because he's black, but because he's an actor, and that's how they view black women in Hollywood, right? Like that's kind of what he's saying here. And
Oh no, they don't. Look how everyone is tarted up on the red carpet. No one tarts themselves up more than black women on the red carpet.
Yes, but how much of a stereotype now is the sassy black fat woman in movies and TV shows?
I'm not talking about sassy. What are you talking like?
That's been a thing for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's like tiresome. We don't,
and that's basically what they're selling us here, really. I mean, sure, she'll be bisexual or lesbian, like you're implying too. That I'm sure. But hello, script doctor.
Hello. But hello, sir. But it also goes back to what I was saying before, which is that, you know, they make this decision. They think they're being progressive, right? And then as soon as the backlash comes, what happens? Oh, look at all these racists who are reacting to
exactly,
you know, to April O'Neil. So it's sort of it's a trap, basically.
But it's also
Leslie.
It's a trap on so many.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
On so many sides, women like looking at good-looking women.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you were a video game player, but Mass Effect had phenomenally sexy female characters in the game, like even to the point where they had a butt shot of one of the girls in the tight white leather outfit, which they got huge amount of pushback for later on. And then the subsequent Mass Effect game, they just the women were massively unattractive. And I tell this story. When I had my company, I had 15 people and 5 of them were lesbians, and I would take everybody out to this Italian restaurant every month, and I would feed them. And right next to the Italian restaurant was a modeling agency where 6-foot-tall girls, stunning girls, would come in and out, and it was the group of lesbians who would watch the girls come in and go, "Ooh, wow, I'd like to do XXY with her," yeah. Blah, blah. They were the nastiest at the table. None of the guys would say anything, but it was the girls who would go, "Woo, I'd like to blah, blah, blah her."
Well, that's what's funny about quote unquote locker room talk, Paul, is I've been around women too.
From the girls.
And even straight women are worse than some straight men.
And I'm not talking about that. But the point is that part of the fun of movies and entertainment, if you're going to have a sexy character, then put one in and don't apologize for it. I don't understand where, you know, man, I'm just old.
And there's other sides to it too. Like, I mean, I don't like how they're aging the characters down so much. I mean, Clifton, you said you got a kick out of the turtles being so young, which, okay, that's fine. One thing, but April was always more of a motherly figure to the crew. And they've tried to make her more of a contemporary in the last few versions of it. And that's another thing I'm not too happy about. And it seems to be a similar thing here. Like, she's clearly probably like in high school, working in the school paper or whatever. That's kind of what they're doing here, it seems like. And that's what, if I had to take a guess. And again, something else I'm not real fond of, because to me, it's just dumbing down more of the characters. I had so many issues with the trailer outside of that. But
didn't they give Splinter an afro as well?
Yeah, they give him like some weird Kenny Powers afro mullet going thing, and they got Jackie Chan playing him.
Why not cornrows? I mean, let's just go. Right? Let's just go the whole way. Why not dreadlocks?
Well, yeah. Instead, why isn't Samuel Jackson the one doing the voice? I mean, he did play what was it, Samurai? That one Samurai. Afro Samurai. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the presentation of women in Hollywood, one thing I've noticed greatly is the massive overcompensation and apologizing for generations of beautiful women on screen. That's basically how we can justify it. Because there's no other way. I mean, they did it. I mean, if you worked in Hollywood long enough and you know enough actors, you'll always get more than a handful of female friend actors who are crying to you because some casting director told them they had to lose 5 or 10 pounds, and they look gorgeous anyways. And what it ended up getting is that it enables them to kind of starve themselves or overwork, and then they end up looking like these very scrawny, not very feminine looking women, and you end up seeing them on hit television shows, and you're wondering, well, okay, so this is supposed to be the object of beauty, but it's a woman who 8 months ago looked like a woman, and now she has the body of a 10-year-old boy. There's no curves to her. She's kind of flat, not much on the hips. You're losing the object of beauty that this woman had, and what the industry had been suggesting that they wanted from the time they were children up until the turn of the century. and now they're going in the opposite direction. You got to either starve yourself, and now we're going back into the opposite direction and overcompensating, and now we want relatable, obese-ish looking people to be front and center of our stories.
And I think on a broader level, this is something that I've been talking about a lot, especially on my podcast as well, is that there is power in beauty, but the idea of beauty, or what beauty even is. I mean, I urge everyone watching this, once this is done, obviously, to go check out, if you can find it. There is a nice little movie by a guy named Roger Scruton, who's no longer with us, called Why Beauty Matters. And it's like 45 minutes long, and it's just, you know, when you see something that's beautiful, or or hear something that's beautiful, it could be a painting, it could be a sunrise, it could be another person. It moves you in a certain way, and it's whether you're talking about architecture or animation or casting, like there's some standards of beauty now are being deconstructed and sort of destroyed. And I think on a broader level, it does have a sort of a demoralizing impact on our culture and society as a whole. Of course, not everyone's going to be blessed, or not everyone is going to be beautiful, so to speak. But there is a great joy that we as humans take in beholding things that are beautiful to us, whatever that might mean. And if you keep robbing people of that, and you stand in the way of that, I think. And people lose touch with what is, with what beauty is. And I'm speaking, I'm defining beauty in just the broadest sense. I do think it has sort of a corrosive effect on people's sort of emotions or their psyche, maybe even their spirit. And that's sort of a bigger, deeper issue, maybe beyond the scope of this particular stream. But, I think that needs to be brought up into the cultural conversation as well.
Well, I think that has to do with the fact that I don't know many parents that read to their children Hans Christian Andersen stories, particularly The Ugly Duckling, because that is about how with time, someone will discover or find their own way to be appealing to other people. It's not just, it's a very simple story, but like the once was an ugly duckling and then it grew up to be a beautiful swan. It's just an allegory for the fact that as you get older, you develop your personality, you develop your beauty, and people will be attracted to that through you just being yourself. It's not about you trying to make yourself appeal to all the cute little ducklings now. It's like you are unique, and your journey and that uniqueness will actually create the beauty that people will recognize. Right. And we don't get that really anymore. And that's a classic tale.
Well, I'm reading the new expurgated Roald Dahl books, which are just blank pages bound together.
Clifton, you were
well, get used to them, because that's happening across the board right now, with everything from Disney comics to R.L. Stine being the most recent.
Oh, really? They're going after R.L. too. Well, the reason I have this on my screen real quick is, we're talking about beauty and all that kind of stuff, because that's the main point a lot of people are saying is, no big deal that you're making her black because she's already been race swapped a few times, but they're not even going by their own standards, because, recently their whole thing is you can't voice a character unless you look like said character. They're not even making this character look like the voice actress. Like, this is the actress who's doing the voice. I don't get this. Like, she don't look anything like what they're doing to this character.
That's really strange, Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe this April O'Neil is beautiful on the inside. That's that's what we're supposed to take away from it.
Maybe. But let's deviate here just a little bit. We got some super chats here, especially some very generous ones, like this one from Ryan, who sent 100 euros, Andre.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. And for 100 euros, he says, Enterprise was the last true Star Trek. J.J. Abrams' Trek was a gratuitous money grab by a talentless intellectual property pirate. Discovery was an identity politics project, using Star Trek as a delivery system. Strange New Worlds and Tico'd is damage control. Yeah, it's difficult to disagree with that. I think that's a pretty fair assessment, all in all. Strange New Worlds and Tico'd Season 3, they are better than anything else to come out of Trek the past decades. But compared to everything else, yeah, it's damage control at this point.
The funniest thing with Discovery for me was, I think it's 2023 when it takes place. I thought all these problems, social problems, would have been solved by the time.
Oh, in the year 3000? Yeah, like that's where they are.
Is that the year 3000?
They're in the 31st century or something.
31st, okay.
And they still have...
we're the ones in 2023. So
no, sorry. Yes, yeah. No, barely. I'm in 2023. Yeah, you would have thought that they would have solved all these social problems. So why is it such a big deal? I always thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, I guess no problem is truly solved when you can create new problems out of it.
But,
so
Ryan, it doesn't sound like you have much to worry about anymore. From the news we've been hearing, Kurtzman Trek is dead. So let's just fingers crossed and hope that's the case. Because after Discovery season 5,
and hopefully Picard just keeps on getting better. It's been a great ride for me.
For anybody who thought, remember, I think it was on this show the other day, somebody said Frakes was saying something about the future of Trek. He just spoke out recently about the cancellation of season 5 and how sad he was and all that kind of stuff and how it was the second home to him. So it doesn't sound like there's any future to him from what he was saying.
Season 5
of Discovery, which is the final season of Discovery. So if he's talking about future Trek, or the future plans for Trek, he's talking about something else.
Yeah, he didn't mention the future at all in this recent interview, was my point. He was talking about how sad it was, the ending, because that was like Discovery was like a second home to him.
I think he was directing some of the Discoveries.
Yes, that's what he was referring to, yes.
He's directed a ton of Trek lately.
Him and LeVar Burton.
Yeah. They've both been involved the whole time.
They've been allowed to cross the Canadian border. Okay.
Is there any reason why they
here when the first border stuff went up, so they couldn't go back?
You're forced to direct another 3 Discoveries because we can't let you back.
Yeah, there would be that. But we do have a couple of other super chats here I want to bring up before we move on. Mario Trujillo says for $5, keep up the good work, guys. Nice seeing Clifton bringing the class. Yes, indeed. Good to know not all actors are insane. Keep the good work up, everyone.
I used to be the best looking person on this dais, and now Clifton's here, and it's pissing me off.
Well, I'll be gone soon, Chato. Don't worry about it. I would say that no, I mean anyone who decides to go into acting full time, they're a little bit off. So it's relative. So there's a sliding scale. I think some of us are more insane than others.
I look forward to you getting back into the groove and seeing you do stuff. I'd be interested.
I mean, maybe you might be the only person at this point. I don't know.
Yeah. And then Bass Player 2011 IFY said for $20, same thing is happening in musing. Oh, I don't want to play Bach, Beethoven, Mozart because white and so on. Yep. Never mind the fact that most of them died in poverty because most of their work was on commission.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And Pinochet's Helicopter Tours says for $10, what a treat to have Clifton on Midnight's Edge today. Back in February, Clifton made a post about Hamlet and the desire for the human spirit to endure. Helped me have a better outlook on humanity in the future. You're muted, Cliff.
Sorry, this is my first live stream ever, guys. Sorry. That's awesome. I love that comment. I was sort of shit posting on Twitter because I was irritated by. So for those who don't use the platform, bless you. Your mental health. Yeah, your mental health is probably better than most of us. But so Elon Musk said verified users, people who pay him $8. Or maybe it's 11 now, but they can now tweet up to 4,000 characters. And I was just like, dude, I'm not reading your long ass tweets. Just send me your, link me to your Substack and call it a day. So sort of in defiance, I wrote out the entire to be or not to be speech from Hamlet. And then I did a breakdown of it, or my interpretation of it afterward, and talking about, how it's not really, in my opinion, a rumination. I think it's heavily misinterpreted. It's not really about, a rumination on committing suicide. I mean, it comes right smack dab in the middle of the play. He's very, he still has his mission to accomplish, which is to avenge his father's death. And, it's a very fierce internal debate that's externalized through soliloquy. And it's about it's about whether to be is just merely existing and allowing yourself to be, moved by fate, outrageous fortune, basically, or not to be, which is to act, to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end those troubles. And it's not about, am I going to die? It's about taking action and taking the risk, and you might die in the process. And what stops us and makes us cowards, basically, is that we don't know what's on the other side of death. So that's why we endure all the pangs of life, all the hardships of life, because we don't know, and we can end ourselves at any time, but we don't, because we're afraid of what's on the other side. But so to me, and the conclusion that he comes to is that, we have all these great ideas about what we want to do, but we're so afraid because, we're worried about dying that we don't do anything. So I don't think he ends the speech in a place of despair. He's like, it's more frustration and wanting to, and I have things to do. But, I mean, it's a deeper discussion about that. But I love that Mr. Pinochet, it inspired him in some way, because a lot of these great works, they do that. They're very life affirming. That's what's missing from a lot of work right now. There's something that's life affirming about, someone who is in a bad place and, really wrestling with how do I tackle this problem, really struggling with how do I take action, and do I have the courage, the moral courage, and the strength and the fortitude to really do what needs to be done. That's kind of what it's about. I mean, it's about struggle and courage and perseverance. And so I love that Pinochet got that. I appreciate that. So that's me on my soapbox.
Yeah. That's a beautiful answer. And on the topic of Hamlet, Shadow Dancer, the Red Mage, also wonders, yes, but Cliff, can you perform Hamlet in the original Klingon?
I'll work on that.
Hey, hawk, hawk. It is a good time to die.
And
it is glorious.
T6577 says, a show with Clifton and Razor Fist talking about commies in Hollywood would be several birthdays and Christmas wishes come true.
It's funny that you say that, because it just so happens that episode number 28 of the Clifton Duncan podcast features Razor Fist, and we're talking about communism in Hollywood. So it's a really great discussion. It's my most popular video, actually. It's got over 120,000 views at this point. 130,000 views. It got dinged for monetization because of what we're talking about. But it's a really fascinating video, definitely. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, there you go. So that was several birthdays and Christmas wishes granted all in one there.
Razor Fist on all week, though, to talk about Ninja Turtles. So hopefully one of these days I'll get him.
Yeah,
he's an ethereal being.
How do you get dinged for talking about communism? Unless you got into other stuff.
Yeah, maybe there's some other stuff that we got into, but I forgot what it was. But I was like, really, what are you talking about?
It does not take much to go up against some kind of standard or get a false flag. Somebody that could easily be someone that's just false flagging, claiming that it's deceptive or something like that. Really, no more is required. Also,
don't be anti-entropy. That's all I'm saying. Watch it.
Also, on the topic of commies in Hollywood, our good friend and CFO Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, says for $20, James T. Kirk is my TV dad. I'm beyond livid about this AD. Let's be blunt. Shatner is a heroic, white, straight, alpha masculine male. And just for those who do not know, Mexican Iron Man is Mexican. So, yeah. This never a hero to these communist Hollywood wokesters. I'm sick and tired of this crap. Oh, yeah, well, I feel you, bro. I feel you.
I don't think Shatner's all that hurt or surprised by it, though.
I think
he tweeted out he wasn't surprised.
Yeah, he's like, "Are you surprised?" That was his response.
Then let's just try to find the relative ones here. Callum Lyle says for $5 Australian on what Clifton said about how they see black people. That happened to that Ghostbusters 2016 actress, that would be Leslie Jones, who screams she's just a meme now.
I felt so bad for Leslie Jones because she was getting it from both sides, right? I mean, she does her thing. I mean, I've seen some of her stuff on SNL. And I mean, look, she's got the big, loud, brassy black woman thing going on. And, you know, when she was cast, there were people who were saying just ridiculous things like, oh, you know, she looks like an ape. And you know, I just thought that was really just horrible. But then there were also people who were like, well, she's a token and she's just there, you know, because she's black. Yeah, like she couldn't win. And the movie sucked. So, you know. Although
it's a funny thing. I thought the movie was going to be bad the moment I saw the trailer and saw that Leslie Jones, who I happen to like, was cast as the turnstile ticket taker in the subway. And one of the key tenets of Ghostbusters was subverting expectations. And in Ghostbusters, the nerds were heroic. If Leslie Jones was the person who was the science person who came up with all the gear and knew how that worked, then I would have thought they understood the zeitgeist of the original movie. But to just make her the loud black woman who is an expert on subways, I went, they're just playing to type. They've lost it. They didn't understand the zeitgeist of the movie. Make her the smart one. Then I would have gotten, yeah, okay, now they're getting somewhere.
Well, they actually had the opportunity, right? Like, because that was one of the biggest mistakes made in the first film, was that Ernie Hudson's role is basically, you know, downgraded to the second act of the film is when he finally shows up.
Yeah, but that's not. But that's
and
not,
he's not a scientist. He's just a regular Joe, which is fine because, like, we're seeing his
but
point of view.
Just
but
saying, if
can I finish, Paul, please?
Yes,
fucking, just let me finish my point. And she, in this movie, she's the only one who actually has a career, right? She works for the city. The rest of them are all unemployed. She quits her fucking job to go work with these people for no good fucking reason. Her character makes no sense in the movie. But at the end of the day, what I found out was she was the best character in the film. She's the only person I laughed at in the movie.
I agree.
And it's because they gave her the best stuff.
In another movie. I don't want to go over
the rest of them are. No, but like, yeah. But point being is, unfortunately, they pushed her into the stereotypical role. That was my complaint.
I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying that the people who put the movie together didn't understand the zeitgeist of the original film.
And they could have made her a scientist. They didn't. That was their fault.
Also, I think in the original, wasn't it Eddie Murphy who was supposed to be playing Winston, and then he got recast,
yes.
and then he got.
And that's what happened. Was initially Winston was meant to be more of a bigger role in the film when he was written for Eddie Murphy, and then when Eddie didn't take on the role because he did Beverly Hills Cop instead, they gave most of his lines to Bill Murray. Oh, and so basically Winston's character got wrote down to next to nothing.
But there's value in that character too, though, because of him not being a scientist. I mean, I love that line about you know, as long as it's a steady paycheck, I'll do whatever you say. And it's just like that's a very human, sort of recognizable motivation. You know, he's a regular guy, and you sort of get to see him discover all this crazy paranormal stuff, you know, in a way. So
I think he fit. He was the audience.
Well, he was supposed to.
He was us. He was us in the movie.
He was us.
And so in that role, I thought he was really good. Anyway, that was just my point in terms of.
Well, the best part about it is
I might be the only person who likes her.
I don't like her as an actress or a comedian,
I do.
but I
think
like
she's
her
very
in the
funny.
movie.
I think she's very talented.
That's just my personal taste, though. But,
and then a very interesting question here from 421 Spaceman, who asks for $7.99 Australian dollars. Why does Hollywood hate red-headed characters so much? As far as I can tell, the only one to avoid the race swap so far is Mera from Aquaman.
they're coming for her.
Yeah, give it time. Give James Gunn time for the reboot. But other than that, yeah, that's it's not a bad point. The greatest indicator over the past few years that a character is about to be race swapped and become black is if that character was a redhead. Clifton, you're...
I was going to say a redhead, so just like Malcolm X. It was a random joke, but whatever.
So yeah, in a sense, this is also the case with April O'Neil for a hot minute there. Even Red Sonja was about to be made a black woman. Yeah, I honestly I don't know why, but it would appear that many in Hollywood feel that gingers evidently are overrepresented. Best I got. Yeah.
I guess
well, then we need a horror movie where all the gingers rise up and fight back and try to burn down Hollywood for killing off representation.
I'm advocating for transgenderism.
Ginger theory.
Yeah. Indeed.
Ginger activist.
We got Return of the Savage Sword here. Nice icon there. It says, hey, Tom, is there any word of DVD complete collection of 2003 TMNT series? Not likely. I think most of it has been released in, in volumes. That was years ago. I think most of it's on Paramount Plus, if not the whole thing. But at this point, I don't see it any time soon getting a full-on release, but you never know. Because that one's under Fox, and I can't remember who owns the distribution on that. So that's the problem with a lot of the older Turtles stuff, is it's under different places. Like the original films are over at Warner Brothers, and stuff like that, for instance. And then I think Fox got their hands on it for a while there because of the whole Next Mutation thing or whatever. So yeah, chances are not likely, but you never know. Then we got Aaron Pipes, who says, Rogan's Sausage Party has to be the worst film I've ever seen. Sad part is when the family seating behind me that obviously expected a family movie left within 10 minutes. Yeah, that thing was... It's still getting a sequel series on top of it all, but that, to me, I like, how did they make a movie out of that? It's at best a Saturday Night Live skit, right? Like, once the joke is over that you have like a bunch of cartoon characters swearing, how much farther can you go from that? I don't know. Did anybody actually see the whole film? I watched about 10 minutes of it and I shut it off.
I saw the whole thing.
I saw the whole thing too.
Never saw it.
The trailer was better. It really fell apart towards the end. The
I'm
ending
not surprised.
is one of the worst endings I've seen in any movie ever. It was completely ridiculous.
The concept only works at best in a short film form, right? Like, because once you get past the fact that you're in this cutesy cartoon world and they get into all the innuendos and swearing, that joke only lasts for a couple minutes at best.
It's an SNL skit.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because like I'm watching the movie, within the first few minutes, they're already like F this and cock that and everything else. It's like, okay, is there going to be actual jokes in this movie, or is it just going to be a bunch of swearing and which it turned out to be just a bunch of swearing and after the first 10 minutes. So I'm just like, all right, shut it off. But he's getting a sequel, folks. Mario Trulio says, how has Seth Rogen stayed in the game, Tom? Vaseline and a strong table. You mean a strong grip, maybe? That could be. Guru Lady says, without Kirk, there would have been no Star Trek. That's a fair point. I think he's a big, massive part of the success of the show, that's for sure. And Carnivore Trucker is with me on Seth Rogen hate. I never used to hate him either. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get his appeal.
He's made a lot of people a lot of money.
I guess so. Pilgrim Media, again, culture is downstream from politics. Yes, it is. It always is. And we got the incompetent and unemployed Alex Kurtzman, who's been here for 6 months, is breaking 3+ additional episodes ordered to film for season 5 of Star Trek Discovery. Season wrapped in November. Yeah, we already knew this was happening.
Oh, we didn't know that. We know there were reshoots. We didn't know they would be filming more episodes. That's news to me.
Well, I told you they had to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Because they left it open for other possibilities, but now they know for sure. Jonas J. Campbell says, Paul, do you consider Stargate SG-1 to be Canadian sci-fi?
It's Vancouver sci-fi. I don't know. I mean, it was nice to see Canadian actors in there. Certainly helped the Canadian film industry.
Are you saying Vancouver is not Canada?
No.
Okay.
It's its own weird place. It's pleasant to be there, but
they're nuts.
Yeah. They charge you extra for cold beer.
Well, that's redonkulous. Jesus Davila is here, and I believe he sent us a thumbs up, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he did. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Call sign Alucard says, per this combo, I gained tiny respect for Brie Larson. She isn't just standing there saying the room isn't on fire when it is. Still don't like her, though. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Because she does go along with a lot of the rhetoric, if that's what you're referring to. Otherwise, why would that's why she went on her big speech about, more representation in reviewers. Like her point is the problem isn't the movies, it's the fact that there's not enough reviewers that represent people like her. From my recollection, unless I'm totally misunderstanding what you're getting at here. Anybody else want to take a stab at this one?
No. We've talked way more than enough about Brie Larson.
Yeah, I don't want to take.
I got nothing.
Something I don't want to talk about even more, but we're going to anyway, is Lucasfilm, and Nightwish Fan 1991 brings it up. Says it appears to be the only studio where you can announce something and not actually have to work on anything. This seems to be the case. Well, eventually these things will get canceled, right, Andre? Because that's the other big story of the day.
Indeed, this is something that we learned yesterday, actually, when Deadline Hollywood kind of broke the scoop that it didn't really come as a huge surprise to anyone. But actually, it was Variety. Variety it was that broke it.
Because everybody's known since September that Patty Jenkins' project was dead.
Yeah.
But the other half was news, I guess.
So they confirmed that. But what Variety did reveal, though, which is what many had suspected, but they only now confirmed, quote unquote confirmed, because it wasn't confirmed by studio sources. It was just something that they had learned. But when Variety learns something and puts it in print, it's usually a done deal. And that would be that Kevin Feige's Star Wars project, because you will recall, he was supposed to produce a Star Wars movie as well. Well, yeah, that ain't happening anymore. So there will, not only will there be no Patty Jenkins Star Wars movie, there will be no Kevin Feige Star Wars movie either. And so Lucasfilm continues its proud tradition of Star Wars movies to be announced. They just fall apart and never, ever happen. So, yeah, we may not be tremendously surprised, but Clifton, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Are you saddened that there won't be a Kevin Feige-produced Star Wars movie after all?
It's tough because in this era, if this was maybe 10 years ago, then I would have been like, oh yeah, Kevin Feige's doing a Star Wars film. It seems like he can do no wrong. And if anyone has demonstrated the ability, at least in the past or at that time, to launch like big franchises, you know what I mean? Like with a cohesive vision, that would have been great. But given the current era, I'm assuming that we're probably all a little bit better off with these projects in the can. I mean, it's just current era entertainment right now is just so suffused with saturated with this one. I'll call it a religion, basically, and so it's probably I'm not going to shed too many tears that these projects have gone by the wayside. It's a shame too. It's I can't think of a better example of how corrosive this particular ideology is than you look at the success of the Marvel films, which I mean, I loved those movies. You know what I mean? Up until, I mean, I kind of stepped off at Endgame. I was like, this isn't a great movie, but you know, I feel satisfied. And to see what the MCU became after that, I mean, I don't know if you could have a stronger indicator or illustration of just, of getting woke and going broke. So, again, at the end of the day, it's probably better that we don't have these projects coming down the road, because Star Wars right now is such an ailing brand. We probably don't need any more people damaging it any further, which it seems like at this point they inevitably would, given the sort of zeitgeist right now that's taken over the industry.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Mr. Chato. Do you think that Kevin Feige could have found his spark back again with Star Wars, or would he have done for Lucasfilm what he's doing right now for Marvel?
I have no idea how he turned into what he turned into. I have no insight. It makes me wonder just how much he was responsible for the initial Marvel universe's success. I don't get it. It just seems so weird.
It seems like, I don't know. I mean, I'm of the opinion, this is just me, as a knee-jerk response to what you were saying, Chato, is that I feel like it seems like he was the sort of, engine behind the success of the first 3 phases of the MCU. It just seems like once they decided that their whole mission was to, be diverse and inclusive, yada, 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 that's when the quality began to decline precipitously. So, I mean, I have faith in Feige, but at least what he's done in the past. But it just seems like now, because the agenda, if you will, isn't really about honoring these franchises. It's more about offering up a sacrifice to the god of progressivism.
There's one aspect to this.
The one thing I'll say is that when I had my plethora of employees and I was paying out millions of dollars a month just in salaries, one of the lessons I learned over years of running businesses was never blame the people, blame the process. And if something screwed up, I always examined the process first. And for the most part, that was always the best solution. I cannot believe that he would become this quote unquote incompetent. Disney's a dysfunctional organization. I don't think there's anybody out there who would disagree with that. So that would be the first place I would look. Now, why do people like Feige and Favreau hang on in the face of this madness? How do they go home without drinking several bottles of Maalox laced with vodka? I have no idea. I actually knew someone in Hollywood who would pour out half the Maalox and then put vodka in it.
Vodka's cheaper.
Vodka's cheaper. Yeah. Anyway, so that's honestly, as a business person, I'm blaming the process, not the person, except for Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, there's one aspect we're not thinking of this. Speaking of Kathleen Kennedy, Iger is in the picture now. When did this Feige project first get announced? It was back when Chapek finally took over control, right? I think this has more to do with Iger coming back into the picture than anything. Because first of all, Iger's looking at it as, we've got a mess over here at Marvel. What the fuck are you doing over here tinkering with Star Wars? You need to get your ass over there and fix that. And the other side of it is just about anything that Chapek did put his hands on that isn't already in production. I'm sure he's going to have a say on or put a stop to it, right? The only one I could see, I think, would be because this is a thing, is wasn't Rogue Squadron one of his big projects that he pushed?
I have no idea.
With behind the scenes. And then with that falling apart, wouldn't that kind of pissed him off, I'd imagine?
Doesn't he have a hand in the Spider-Man success?
He did have a Spider-Man, but that was Sony's success. Marvel only got 25% of it.
Yeah, Feige and team did deliver the Marvel. Yeah, the Marvel films.
I'm loath to throw him.
He's gonna get the question. Why can't you do that for us?
I was gonna say that's not a plus for him in this situation. Unfortunately,
I'm loath to throw him into the same category as Kathleen Kennedy.
No, I don't know if I go that deep yet, but I really do think he's truly drank the Kool-Aid. He's bought into this idea that he's much better at this than he really is. There's other people that are part of this, like Script Doctor said. So it's not just him alone as far as the Marvel situation. But I got to imagine Iger. See, that's the thing is Iger made a big point about Star Wars being, a big deal to him, and the buck stops with him when he was there before, and all those kind of things. And there's all kinds of shit going on with the Acolyte right now, in the behind the scenes that we're hearing about. There's a lawsuit on the horizon that I don't know if we're going to get into today, but that might have to wait for Friday. But like this whole thing, like you said, it is a mess. It's on both fronts. And I think a big part of this is more so just Iger battening down the hatches and going, look, we ain't got time for you to futz around with a Star Wars project that's never going to happen. I need you over here right now. I think that's more of what this has to do with, because honestly, back when they were announcing all these projects left and fucking right, the only one of them that I thought had a chance in hell of seeing the light of day was Feige's project, to be honest with you. But back then, the Marvel Universe hadn't really hit this low of a low yet either. I don't know if that's what you guys think about that. If you agree, disagree, but yeah.
Well, one of the things you have to remember when Marvel started hitting its low is when it stopped hiring people that had earned their place in the industry. I mean, the first phase started off with Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh, and Joe Johnston. Those were very acclaimed directors that had earned their stake in the industry. And then as you got further beyond Joss Whedon and the Avengers, you started getting names that you'd never heard of before, and some were good, but most have been bad. And that's because Marvel has realized that if they can get cheap labor, is essentially what they're doing. They're getting cheap labor out of these people that are very green and hungry, that want to work. And it's a great calling card to have Marvel on your resume, regardless of how the audience views it today. In the industry, you have a Marvel movie on your resume. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's not going to be a bad thing until the rest of the industry realizes, oh, wait, how did that movie actually really do? What was its reception? Did it actually make money for the studio? They're not going to be paying attention to that until it gets way too low for them to realize that maybe having a Marvel on your resume is not going to be the best thing. It's going to take many years for that. But that's one of the reasons where you got the change. It wasn't even just solely the identity politics, which is the obvious one. It's the fact that when you look at the history of the talent that they're bringing in, they're very new. Or at least they're very new on the public side of things. They may have been working for a decade behind the scenes or trying to get to their point. But they don't have the gravity. They don't have the career stability to even say, no, Kevin, I like your idea, but I think this is better for the story. They can't argue that because Kevin could just say, you wouldn't be here without me. And there's a lot of power to that for a producer. And that's an arrogant thing for a producer to do for a project when they're trying to make something successful.
Mm. Well, and that was just another angle I was thinking of with this whole thing since last night, about the fact that a lot of this stuff came into play because of Iger, Chapek is the one who was in power at that time, and I'm curious if Iger was the one who's just like, nope, we're not doing that now.
I would certainly like to read Kevin Feige's book, The Disappearance of Kevin.
I would love for the Seth Rogan to go and work for Marvel and do an impromptu sequel to the interviews. We can get a Sony hack at Disney and learn everything that happened in their emails. That would have been pretty sweet. But we do have a couple of super chats for Chato and for Clifton, don't we, Tom? Before they have to bow out.
I believe so. Yes, we do. We have. Let's see here. Let's start with some for Paul. Let's see here. We got Callum Lyle who says, yes, Chato, that
Miranda.
was Miranda. Liera is the hottest.
No, I think the robot that went into the cyborg body, what was her name? Edie. I mean, the hottest woman on Mass Effect was Edie. Yep, but there's nothing wrong with that.
What was the follow-up to it? Was it Mass Effect Andromeda? That was like the really bad one.
Terrible. Just terrible.
And then now Liz Sumerian, I believe this is referring to you, Clifton, says you have a guest invoking Roger, sorry. I don't know where I got Roger from. Roger Scruton. He's a definite keeper. I've been thinking about Rogan. That's why.
Well, Roger Scruton is he sort of sent me on a journey as far as, art and what it really means. And, like I said before, that his film, Why Beauty Matters, is powerful. I'm reading another book of his right now about beauty. He was one of, I think what gets lost a lot of times when we talk about the culture war is the importance of art. And we rarely talk about it unless we're complaining about how bad it is. But people like Scruton, I think, were really effective in communicating the importance and the power of not just art, but of great art. And I'm glad that I stumbled upon him, and I'm glad I'm glad your guest recognized that. So he's definitely he was at least a very wonderful communicator and great thinker, definitely.
There you go. And then let's see here. Was there any more for Paul or Callum or for Clifton? I was looking at Callum Wiles there. DCB Titan. I think this is for Paul. Yeah. Vancouver is Diet California.
Yep.
Very true.
It's California with water. Although California, they filled your reservoir. The reservoirs are full.
Yeah. They had snow and rain.
That's right.
Oh, both. That's like Wisconsin. Tommy Reviews says Chato clearly hasn't watched Leslie Jones on The Daily Show. She is beyond insufferable.
Oh, okay.
Why she was a guest host is beyond me.
Well, The Daily Show is terrible.
Oh, it's been terrible.
That's a perfect example of diversity hiring there. I mean, Trevor Noah, his stand-up, I didn't find it to be bad, but as a host, and to be fair, when Jon Stewart took over, because I'm old enough to remember when Craig Kilborn was the original host of The Daily Show, much more dry and straightforward, and the show worked. It still worked. And then when Stewart took it in the more sort of clownish direction, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. But then, I mean, they brought in Trevor Noah, and it's just like, it's not. I can see what you're doing. That's the thing. We can all see what is going on, and it's. I don't want to knock him. Again, if they offer me the job, I'm going to take it. You know what I mean. But it's just. It's not. It doesn't seem to be the best fit for him, and now they're doing all these guest hosts since he's gone. And
he's had his moments, but it felt like a pity hire.
Yeah,
it was very noticeable because here's a very interesting fact that I've noticed with stand-up comedians. If you want to see if they're actually good or funny, like legitimately, put them as a guest on 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, because it's an improvisational like wordplay comic show. Trevor Noah was on there and he bombed at it because he was not very clever or funny. And he's claims to speak 5 or 6 languages, and I don't think he's wrong with that, but he's definitely not clever enough to have fun with it, at least on a show like this. And then also another Daily Show correspondent, I can't remember her first name, but her last name's Wolf. She was on that as well, and she was terrible. And it's kind of weird, but then you get a couple of other U.S. comedians that swing on over for a day or two that you never really hear of because they do stand-up circuits only or just albums, and they just knock it out of the park. And you're like, oh, I understand what's going on here. We've got
oh, well, the classic stand-ups that you'll never see on TV, like Bobby Slayton, who's like hilarious.
Yeah.
And Phil.
I rarely do you find somebody who actually remembers that Craig Kilborn started that. And you're right. Stewart just didn't get the joke at first, I think. Like, because Craig did. Like, that was the whole point of it, was like they did it. They were supposed to be doing it like it was straightforward.
Yeah.
Right? Like some of the other guys on the side that were doing some of the segments still got the joke. But it took a while for Stewart to kind of get into it. And then he just kind of made it his own in a weird way. So that kind of more became just this Jon Stewart show all over again, but just with politics this time. But yeah, that was my take on it. But no, I didn't hate it then. But yeah, Craig Kilborn, that version of it was the one that I fell in love with originally.
Yeah.
But Tipping Bard has a good question here that I think both Clifton and Paul can address before they take off here. Can you define what a character actor is and how it differs from regular actors?
So character actor is a term we use for, actors who, they'll typically play like comedy roles, or they're very like sort of transformational in a way. Like someone mentioned in the chat, Gary Oldman is a really great example of someone who, he's not really the same from movie to movie. Whereas you'll see other actors who kind of play a variation on themselves in a way. And those tend to be more, I love Tom Cruise to death, and I think he's a really great actor actually, but the sort of base Tom Cruise performance, this very sort of intense energy. He
doesn't really go outside of his bubble too often.
Right. But I mean, but the bubble that he's in, I mean, I think, I just, again,
it works for him.
I got a real soft spot in my heart for Tom Cruise, but someone like a Gary Oldman would be considered a character actor. I hope that answered your question. Chato, do you have any sort of clarification on that?
Actually, so I'll add to that. Several actors often graduate grudgingly to become character actors. A lot of them that I've known thought of themselves as leading actors, and either their time passed or they came to grips with the fact that they were never going to get a leading role. But an awful lot of character actors thought that they were lead actors. It's just the game of the ego. Then you've got people like Steve Buscemi. I don't think he probably ever thought of himself. I think he's a permanent character actor. And happily so. Charles Lawton, J.K. Simons.
There's Gary Coleman come up in the chat. He's another good one. Ned Beatty is another great example.
Yeah, Ned Beatty. Perfect.
William Fichtner is another good example. Kevin Pollak's a great example.
Stephen Tobolowsky.
Philip Seymour Hoffman was one of those guys who kind of graduated from being a character actor into which is sad because just on the cusp of him becoming, a leading actor, we lost him, but yeah.
Well, there's different sort of. Well, it's interesting too because it's not as sort of black and white as it is. So you can have there are some actors, like I consider myself a character actor in a leading man's shell, and there was a period, for instance, Johnny Depp, I think, is a good example of someone who can be a leading man, but he plays all kinds of crazy, kind of zany characters. Then you have a Philip Seymour Hoffman who, again, he is a quote unquote character actor, but he can also carry a film in a play.
Exactly.
Right.
Like a person, like a quote unquote leading actor. So, there's a lot of sort of gray area.
Jeff Daniels can do both.
Jeff Daniels is another good example.
Jeff Daniels is a good example of somebody who kind of transcended from being.
So, but in the old style Hollywood, where you had the Charles Lawtons and people like that, larger than life, character actors would really chew up the scenery.
He's probably one of the most famous ones right here, because I have to remind people that Robert Downey Jr. was never a quote unquote movie star. He was a character actor, and his biggest role basically was as Chaplin.
Well, he was just unemployable.
Well, that eventually happened, yes, Paul. But he was never a guy. I mean, he had less than zero in Chaplin, or probably his two leading roles he ever had outside of up until he became Iron Man. Is my point.
But think about it, because Downey is a great example of. First of all, I love his redemption arc, but he's someone who Chaplin and Tony Stark, but also Tropic Thunder. So what I mean?
But of course that was because of. But that's what I'm saying. He got a second career because of Iron Man, and that was where.
No, it's because of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Well, that too.
But do we have? But then conversely, who's the next Robert Redford, Paul Newman? Who's out there that really has that level of magnetism outside of Clifton here?
It's the kid that was in Dune, because all the girls love him.
Oh, Chalfant? Timothy.
Yeah.
But these are girly men.
His name is.
That's a different category.
He's still what they want. Him and also Loki. You mentioned Loki.
Yep.
The girls just go, ooh.
Yep. Cary Grant.
It leads to the question, or I love One of my favorites is Jimmy Stewart, actually, who, you know, you gotta, I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog. Who else? Marlon Brando is another example, who's someone who could transform. You know, you see what he did in A Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh yeah.
Versus Julius Caesar. And then he does, Godfather, and sort of revitalizes the image of him. So, in my opinion, I mean, any great actor is a character actor. I mean, Denzel Washington can do the lawyer in Philadelphia, for instance, and also play, the rogue cop.
But he's
rogue
a good
cop
actor.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think any great actor is going to be a character actor.
Yep. No, I agree totally, and he's another great example too. And then we had one more for Paul here. Perfect timing. Thank you, 6. On Mass Effect's DCV Titan says, after what they did to Mass Effect Remaster, they shouldn't call it Mass Effect.
Well, yeah,
they should have called it M Effect, I guess.
Yeah, they did. They kind of backed off on the male gaze on it. I won't name the woman who was out there lobbying for it, because I believe she's a cow. But I don't understand how the game companies have capitulated to these wokesters. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, and also the gamers are also interesting too. I mean, I sort of got can we say crimson pilled during in 2014. I can't believe it was almost 10 years ago, but the whole Gamergate fiasco, right? And which is kind of an interesting thing, where a bunch of gamers were kind of the first people to be like, no, we don't want any of this. And it's one of those areas where you can see very clearly that people just don't want it. I mean, was it Battlefield 5, then Last of Us Part 2? Anytime they try to implement these kinds of this religion, it turns out very, very badly. And Mass Effect Andromeda is another one. It's just it's hilarious. It's like clockwork. I mean, it's really, that's why they say get woke, go broke.
And what's funny is the people who are advocating for these things are not the audience and don't buy the product. So why listen to them?
Yeah. They're broke. I mean,
well, that's true. They are broke.
I had this, so I was in New York, and there was a meeting with this major theater in DC, and there was a new artistic director, and he was meeting with a bunch of people to try to form relationships with people. And I remember I froze the room by paraphrasing Michael Jordan, and I said, well, Republicans buy tickets too. And people just they didn't want to hear that.
Nice.
They didn't want to hear that at all. And if the Republican Party, and sorry to get into politics, but is the party of like rich white males, then don't you want their money? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I got into a discussion with a school trustee here, and I said, so your diversity hire, what percentage of your diversity hires are conservatives? None. That doesn't count.
Yeah, diversity means communists of color. I'm telling you.
And on the Mass Effect note, Nikki Vix sends in 5 and says, for Chato, Mass Effect's EDI was voiced by Trisha Helfer.
Just Edie.
Or Edie. Okay, sorry. I don't play this crap, nerd.
I do. One of my favorite games. Get it right.
Battlestar Galactica's Caprica.
I didn't know who voiced her. That's great.
Trisha Helfer, or whatever.
Listen, the entire cast, the characters, the universe they created was just one of the best.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly very popular.
Yeah, right up there with Skyrim in terms of just the richness of the lore and the characters.
Yeah. I see some great shout outs for more character actors like F. Murray Abraham. There was one that I saw that Jamie Foxx was one who graduated from being a great character actor into a leading man.
Yeah, perfect example. If you go back and watch him on In Living Color, the stuff that he was doing back in the 90s, it's just, and then he gets his own sitcom, and he's doing that thing, and then he becomes a movie star. He
did start off as a stand-up.
Right, and a stand-up. I mean, Jamie Foxx is one of those guys who, it's just there are some people who are who I feel like are famous and deserve to be so, but most don't. Jamie's one of those guys.
The best piece of advice was from a famous Canadian comedian, Johnny Wayne, and he said, "Paul, if you quit, you lose." That was it.
Yeah,
that was his complete advice.
Well, I was going to say, as far as the character actor thing, to kind of put a lid on that, basically just about anybody Quentin Tarantino has in his movies is probably a character actor, because he loves character actors. Outside of the few randos that are like movie stars, like John Travolta. Yeah.
I think Brad Pitt is a character actor stuck in a leading man's body.
He is very much so. Yeah. And that's kind of what Tarantino finds in these guys, right? And that's what he pulled out of John Travolta. Look at that role. That is one of the best performances John Travolta has ever done in his life. And he's one of those guys like a Tom Cruise, where normally you wouldn't put him in something that was normally outside.
He was good in Hairspray.
And he was all right in that. Yeah.
And but are we forgetting his best work, which was Battlefield Earth?
Of course.
I rest my case.
If it wasn't for Pulp Fiction, we wouldn't have got that, Clifton. You got to remember.
That's right. That's right. The change.
He had the dreads, man. He had the dreads.
Forrest Whitaker, speaking of Battlefield Earth. Forrest Whitaker.
I so want to do a retrospective on Battlefield Earth. And speaking of,
there's a good character actor, Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Peter Stormare. Let's not forget, since we're mentioning names.
Yeah.
And and that is a funny thing. You'll go watch a British production because you just love the fact, they've got Maggie Smith in this character role, and they got this, and they got this person. And, it's just not something that the Americans do.
No, but like I said, if you really want, I think a good crash course is Tarantino. And he also had a book that came out recently called Cinema Speculation that I'm deep into, and I could recommend that if you're, he gets into some of those aspects actually. But we only have a limited time with Paul. He's leaving us now. And I think Clifton, you've got like maybe 5 minutes left, right? So let's
about 10 or so.
Let's say goodbye to Paul for now. Check out Paul's channel. You got a video coming up or anything you want to plug?
I'm working very hard on a very philosophical video that will get no views, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying doing it. Has to be said.
Well, you never know. I mean, that's what I thought about the Graham Hancock video, and that turned out to be our biggest video of last year, with almost 900,000 views and counting.
Wow.
Because Andre's like, nobody's going to watch this video. And next thing,
No, I think you'll like the premise of this video.
Looking forward to it.
So I will see you, Clifton. A pleasure.
I watch
likewise. I would. I'd love to have you on the podcast sometime.
Anytime.
Invite you there. So
they just.
I'll make sure you guys hook up.
Yeah.
Great.
Beep me, and I'll be. But I'll have to talk like you while you're doing your thing.
Damn, I'm pitching a tent right now.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah.
So this became a very progressive chat all of a sudden.
That's right. Yeah. You like my muffins? They're my Christmas muffins.
Well, now
you get it. 2 tents.
Anyways, bye everyone. You too, Script.
Bye,
Take care, Paul.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Have a good one.
All right. Well, we got a few more minutes left with Clifton. Andre, you wanted to discuss Clifton's career and a little bit about himself.
Because you have an amazing career, as we heard earlier. So what happened? Why are you now suddenly an influencer and content creator? What do you think should be done about it in algorithmic friendly terms?
Right. So I decided that I didn't want a particular medical product. And at this point, you cannot work in the entertainment industry unless you have taken this particular medical product. It's an injection. And, I didn't really have I wasn't on a crusade, or I'm not some sort of activist about any of this. I just said, no, it's not really for me. I also became very vocal in terms of how we were handling the events of the last couple of years. And on top of that, I said, when the unrest began to unfold in the United States in 2020 after the death of George Floyd, I began to see very rapid changes in the industry. And I was getting these weird emails from white women I'd worked with before who were like, "I'm so sorry about what you're going through right now," or institutions that I worked with previously who said, "We know that you felt unseen." And I was like, "Dude, you invited me there multiple times to work with you. Like, I didn't feel unseen." So I began to speak out just about the political aspects of the industry that I thought was, we're changing rapidly, and as well as our pandemic response. And that made me a huge outlier. I have all the wrong opinions. So, I it's weird because I had this. At first, I had 2 Twitter accounts. I had a public Twitter account which was about hey, come see me in this show, guys. I just got cast in this show. Here's the reviews, which nobody cared about. And then my anonymous account where I shared my true opinions. And then at a certain point, I said, you know what, man, I'm just gonna say what I actually think. And it's funny because I've now become more famous, if you will. I mean, I've never searched for fame. If anyone spent time around famous people, you know that they're not they're pretty miserable.
Yep.
So seeking fame is not really never been my MO, but I've become more visible, if you will, for not being an actor than I did in in my 10-year career. But now I think my role is, if we're going to call it a culture war, is to really point up the importance of art and artists. And I'm trying right now to sort of, be an ambassador in a sense and an advocate, because some people, their jobs, the way I analogize it, some people, their jobs, that they build computers, some people build engines or furniture. My job is to build characters. And I think artists and tradesmen are linked in many, many ways. And we talk about, in the culture war, we talk about politics and economics and policy, all this other stuff, but we don't talk about art and artists and how it can really enrich our lives in a really great way. I mean, that's why we talk about these old movies, these old comics, these old plays, these old stories, these classic stories, because they move us greatly. And the really good ones last hundreds and hundreds of years, if not thousands, in the case of the Greeks. It's very strange. I don't imagine, even if everything went back to normal tomorrow, that I go back to the industry, because people have been so cruel and so ugly. If people want to watch my latest podcast with a woman named Laura Osnes, big Broadway star, 2 Tony nominations to her name, just wonderful, wonderful person. And her 15-year career ended almost overnight because she decided not to get this particular medical product. And we were both just talking about, how could someone, all the best people right now are being purged from the industry. So you have conformists and liars and cowards and ideologues and people who are actually grounded and rooted in reality and who have a great work ethic and who are actually good, decent people are leaving, especially in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So
and if I dare may say it, it's also some real talent that is leaving.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what's happening. And there is another woman named Rosie Kay, who was a dancer in the dancer and choreographer in the UK, who went afoul of she dared to recognize the difference between males and females, and now she's out. And we were talking about this on our episode as well. Good people who everything you want in an artist, right? Tough, disciplined, gifted, hardworking, curious, open, imaginative, creative. You can't really exist right now, I think, in a lot of these arts industries, because the goal is, as Critical Drinker says, the message, and nothing else. So hopefully, as my sort of presence and channels continue to grow, I can finance and crowdfund my own projects, because it seems right now what's really cool is that things are becoming very decentralized. And I think that Hollywood is losing relevance. Even on Broadway right now, people are talking about how the shows are too woke. They can't keep the shows open. And as bad as Hollywood is, let me tell you, the New York theater scene, Broadway, it's 10 times more concentrated as far as...
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be fun just to see how that is.
There was a point where in 2018, I just stopped getting work. I had this great run. And I really think it's because I'm not gay, I'm not trans. And I don't walk around, I don't really like scripts where everything is about how bad white people are and about how oppressed I am. I don't feel like lecturing to people about all these kinds of things. So I've been an outlier for a long time. But what's great is that I'm sort of I'm assembling Avengers in a way. I'm finding people who are fantastic and who are, Broadway caliber or better, who have careers. And, we're trying to get stuff off the ground to really serve, because the fact of the matter is, and here's what people don't talk about, is that, when you're auditioning or you're trying to get your career going, what you're really doing, you're not performing for the general public anymore. You're trying to appease the writers, the producers, the directors, and so on and so forth, who happen to be of the same sort of mindset. So the public comes last. So what we need to do, and I think what artists need to do in general right now, is to, and what I feel like I'm more in a position to do, is to reach out to a general audience. So now my audience now is no longer a bunch of pretentious assholes in New York and LA. It's the rest of the world. So that's the exciting thing right now. That's what's going on. And so, and I think in this particular medium, I mean, my training, my background, it really lends itself to this particular medium and form and format. So hopefully going forward, I'll be able to just do some really great stuff with really great people and to entertain all you fine, lovely folks who just want great work from people who don't hate you and talk down to you and think you're stupid for your political beliefs.
And right. If I may carry on from that, I actually think that is the right move, because I'm sure that these uber woke place in New York, they don't sell out, do they? Kind of struggle with ticket sales, I should imagine.
Well, what's been happening is that since the pandemic, what they did, they went so hardcore into all these protocols. I mean, it's really ridiculous. Our unions are a big problem. The performers' unions are a big problem. SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, or as they call it in Team America World Police, the Film Actors Guild. You can figure out that acronym for yourself. And the Actors Equity Association, which is the Stage Actors Guild. I mean, they are union. They went so full on. They were saying that you can't even have like coffee and tea, and all the silverware has to be individually wrapped, for safety purposes. And they instituted all these mandates. And what happened is that, at least on Broadway and off Broadway, New York in general, they terrified their audience, right, their core audience base, into not coming to shows. And they also alienated vast swaths of their foreign and domestic tourist audience. I mean, Broadway thrives on tourist dollars, and these videos began going around about with Broadway stars like Patti LuPone, for instance, who were yelling at people for not wearing masks and all kinds of stuff. So people just said, you know what, I'm not going there. And on top of that, I get messages from people, and it's very upsetting, who they're my age, who have been lifers, and now they're forced to find new lines of work, again, for making completely irrational health choices for themselves. Or they are, families or people who are enthusiasts who say, I spend all this money and thousands of dollars on these shows, but because of the way they behaved, I don't want to see them. And you get these young people right now, which is the most crushing thing for me. People who have trained since they were 3 or 4 years old to do musicals, to be in ballet, to sing, to do whatever. But they're being shut out because A, they don't have the right politics, or B, they didn't take, this particular medical intervention. And they feel they're aimless, they're lost, they're depressed, they're hopeless, and they feel very shunned right now. And it's very upsetting. And I think a lot of people have seen the way that entertainment professionals have behaved. And mind you, while everything else was shut down, while businesses were shut down, Hollywood was still going, and you could still work and get residuals and get all that money and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, they're staring down at everyone who wanted to keep their jobs. So there's this huge divide right now, this class divide, cultural divide between the people who are actually making, the content and the culture and the entertainment or whatever, and everyone else. And I think what is key right now is for people to, I think just more independent artists need to rise up and speak out and build their own stuff. And I urge everyone listening and watching right now is to engage in your own creative pursuits, create your own art and put it out there and share it. Use your imagination, be creative. Now's the best time ever to do work and share it, even if it's like not good or whatever. We need to be creating. We are all artists in some form or fashion. And what's great about right now is that we can see, the king, that the emperor has no clothes. These folks in Hollywood, so to speak, they some are gifted and great, but for every Jon Favreau or Idris Elba or whatever, there's like a million people who are hacks. And what I've discovered is that just, a bunch of YouTubers or TikTokers or podcasters could be really compelling and interesting. And there's a lot of independent artists who are doing great work right now as well, and making a bit of a living off of it. So I think that as these machines continue to die, other people will take its place, and I hope to be one of those people.
Well,
yeah, and I think you will be. Before we get to this super chat, I just want to say I think what you do is so brilliant is that, one, you help keeping people sane, because everyone is being gaslit by the media, by entertainers, everything. You stand against that, you and many others. And I think that when we are on the other side of this, and since Vanguard is now walking back their ESG commitments, that means that BlackRock right now are the only ones propping this up with money, which means it's a matter of time now until this madness ends, and then we're going to be on the other side of things. Then you will already have built an audience as someone who was legitimate, genuine, put common sense first, and didn't speak down to the audience. And I think and I hope that that is going to pay off tremendously in the end, because the audience is with you.
You know, and the thing is, what pisses me off, there's this big attitude in the industry now where they think everyone is dumb. And, you know, you don't need an Ivy League degree or a high IQ or, you know, whatever to know whether you like something or not, or to know whether or not something made you feel something. You know what I mean? You don't need, you know, all this quote unquote education or whatever to know how something makes you feel. And for artists, that's our thing. We're trying to make you feel something. Sometimes we make you think, but often, you know, we're circumventing your logical processes and hitting you right in the feels. And, you know, the general public, I mean, you know, that's your lifeblood. They're your you know, customers, so to speak. I hate to use that term, but you know, you're supposed to be serving them. And what's happening right now is people are just more worried about their sort of crusade than actually doing you know, creating work that will appeal to audiences. And the thing is, you don't really have to. I mean, you know, just go back and read like Aristotle's Poetics. You know what I mean? He kind of laid it out all in there. You know, tell the truth. There was a great essay written in 1943, I think, by Isidore Schneider, and one of the great lines in it is that you know, and these people are communists, you know, and they're trying to start a conversation about, you know, the problems in theater and writing and art and everything. And he says, you know, nothing has to be politically correct as long as it's true. And I think that people have forgotten that message, and hopefully we'll return to sanity. And by the time we do, I'll have built a nice little following and be doing my own stuff. So it won't matter what Hollywood is doing. I mean, I would love to be in a position where they're trying to get me to be in their projects. You know what I mean? Because I have this, you know, Logan or Jake Paul sized following. You know what I mean? That would be pretty awesome, and a nice little nice little revenge arc there, I think.
I think
that would be
right. Yeah. And to your point, it's not so much a customer relationship with Hollywood. It's really just about establishing connections, because that's where you get the feelings from. When you're telling a story, you're trying to connect with the audience, make them feel something, or see a perspective that they can identify with, that's not so blatantly preached to with the immutable attributes, but just in general, like how life is hard. That's a very abstract thing that people can identify with. That's where you start from. And then you just tell whatever story you think can evoke a very fun you know, series of emotions. And obviously, and this is the one that I would get told a lot of times, more frequently between 2010 and 2015, not so much now, which is that people want to leave seeing a show, movie, theater, whatever, happy. And because that's how you satisfy them. You take them on an emotional journey. You can give them ups and downs and stuff, but if you make them leave happy, they'll want to come back. And we would get periods where there'd be so many people on television and movies who like, we want to make them feel depressed when they leave this. We want to have that impact. We want that message is what you kind of get across.
Well, I would use a different word than happy. I would say fulfilled. There's a great
that's a better one. Yeah.
There's a great book called by Bill Johnson called A Story as a Promise, and that's pretty much what it's about. What are you promising to the audience at the beginning, and do you fulfill that promise? And that's what we want in a story, whether it's a happy story or a sad story. I mean, I at the end of $1 Million Baby, it's not a very happy story, but I felt fulfilled by watching that. Versus It's a Wonderful Life, where at the end it's very cathartic, and I feel more affirmed about life. You know what I mean? So I think it's more about fulfillment than happiness. But I agree with what you're saying.
Excellent points all around. And before you have to go, ActionCom
and
says,
speaking of doing your own thing, sorry, that was my segue for that.
Denise get his theater, the Steppenwolf Theater Company, off the ground. Will that happen again?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to talk to Gary about it. As a matter of fact, there's people who are starting theaters, their own little theater companies. And what I would love to do, actually, like they used to have plays on TV back in like the 50s and 60s, and now, given our technology, it would be great if we could, have a theater company that's sort of a hybrid, where there's in-person performances, but we're also filming and live streaming, and sharing that kind of work. So, if there were to be another Steppenwolf, and by the way, for those who don't know, Steppenwolf Theater Company, it's this really, really fantastic theater in Chicago, in the United States, and Gary Sinise got to start there. And and it's really great because they'll bring shows to Broadway, and they just completely shame all these sort of snooty New York actors because they're so superior. So I think it can happen again. I just think that, and it is happening, but hopefully people will be more savvy as far as technology. I mean, they're already kind of streaming some shows or screening some shows, but I think if there's a way to build an audience of people who, or a company, I should say, and share it with everyone, share it with the world, I think that's going to be the kind of next big thing. And that would be awesome to do something like that.
There's a model that already exists to that. I don't know if it's been continued, but PBS and Showcase used to film Broadway and stage plays from all over the world and show them to their audiences, and people would then search for those theaters and order tickets and fly out to see those shows live. Yeah. YouTube is a perfect medium to parallel that and make it work, especially with current conditions.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. All right. Did we have any other super chats for Clifton?
I think people are tired of listening to me talk.
No.
I think we're caught up. I think Six says that's all that she knows of. So thank you so much, Clifton, for your time. We appreciate it. We hope to have you back again soon. It's been a very excellent conversation with you and insightful, and it's great to hear alternate point of views from people from inside the industry.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it, and like I said, longtime fan, and not all actors are ridiculous and dumb and insane.
Well,
no, there's always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. Everyone, make sure to follow Clifton A. Duncan both on Twitter and on YouTube. Links for both is in the description, and you're also on Rumble. So check that out too. Also check out us on Rumble. Because we haven't pushed it a lot, but we are on Rumble too. So make sure to go and follow us there as well. Clifton, what do you have coming up that you want to push in particular?
Well, right now, just a bunch of new podcast episodes coming up. Dean Cain is in the offing at a certain point, but I'm not going to release that one just yet. But just great podcast. Nice. I want to do more with my channel as well. Put out more performance-based content. I put out a video of myself singing some Rodgers and Hammerstein, and that went very, very well. People were saying my favorite comments were from people who were like, I have no interest in musicals at all, but I will watch more of this if it's you doing it. And that's what I mean. People, great work transcends all politics, all this other nonsense. And so hopefully, going forward, I'll be able to put out more entertainment-based content and the podcast. And who knows where we will go from there. But for now, you can just find me on Twitter, Clifton A Duncan. My YouTube is Clifton Duncan, and hope to see you there. I'm really bad at plugging myself, but
no, you're fine. We got those links for you in the description, and the mods are sharing them in the chat. So thank you to them for doing that, and even got your Rumble here. So there you go.
Amazing.
I also look forward to your interview with Dean Cain. He was my Superman growing up.
He's another example of people who are just too good. He's such a good dude. He's a genuinely good guy. And but he has all the wrong opinions. He's still working, by the way. So he's cool. But yeah, it was a really great interview. He's a gamer. He's a nerd. He's all kinds of things. He's great.
Awesome, Clifton. It was a pleasure having you. I look forward to having you come back. Hopefully, many more times.
Ads here, Clifton. You don't make content; it's art.
I appreciate that. I actually don't like the word content, but I definitely appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Trunk.
As he's also one of our mods. So thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, and thank you, Clifton, for being here. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Thanks, Tom, Andre, Script Doctor. It's really been great. Thanks for everybody in the chat. You all are wonderful and hilarious and smart and insightful. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Yes, indeed. And I'll make sure you get a hold of Mr. Chato as well. So take care, sir.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thank you. So long. It was a pleasure.
Take care.
All right. Let's get back into some of these super chats. Andre, what do you say?
Yeah, and then we have to cover the Punisher before we round out as well.
I think there might be one in here covering that might get us into that. So let's
perfect.
Let's head into that woods. We got Tim Hayes. How you doing, buddy? Who's been here for 19 months. Thank you so much. We got Zontar, who says, notice the executives trying to course correct. It says course correcting. Are all the other Gen Xers, while those fighting to keep this nonsense are the boomers.
There's definitely
there's
trend for generations there, but it's nothing unique. I mean, some of the worst people fighting for this are also boomers who stand to gain something.
I was just gonna say that was where I was that was where my him and Holland was coming from.
That's what his super chat's saying the ones that are trying to keep this concept are boomers.
Well, yeah, but I was going with Andre, like in the whole, there's a financial reason for it, and
yeah.
Very few of the boomers are true believers. I mean, some are just that far gone, but for most of them, there's a financial incentive for being down with the cause.
Oh yeah, there's always a subsect of people who just want to pretend, or at least seemingly be with the young crowd and go along with this, that, or the other. So that's part of it too. But oh yeah, there's usually other underlying reasons why they are getting into this crap. Master Clockwork says she's living in a van down by the river. I don't know who she is, but she is.
April?
Yes. Oh no. Oh no. Jonas J. Campbell is in the house still and says, the most suspicious thing to me is how quick all the trolls started using the P word in defense of April O'Neil. It's another good one for her. The chilling effect is suspicious. Yes, I know exactly what you're referring to. I'm not going to give the one person the time of day who said such a thing or alluded to such a thing about Eric July, but now they're trying to backtrack on it. But yeah, no, this was not a cool move on their part. But Eric July did a really amazing job, better than I or Razor Fist or anybody else could have ourselves, and that's why we just retweeted it. Both of us did. On the breakdown of the history of the character and what we know about it, and this stuff has been addressed already. But yeah, I would love to see Eric also call out the fact that I've been pointing out too, and that is that they gender swapped or race swapped Bebop as well by giving Seth Rogen the role. Glade Ribbon says Twitter affirmed that the lesbian gays and the male gays are pretty much the same. What is it with y'all having problems with the gays? I don't get it. It's a joke. Moving on.
Yeah.
Mecca J has been a member for 4 months and says, I see some defend Seth Rogen being involved in this movie by claiming he also produced shows like Preacher, Boys, and Invincible. Well, he also made Green the Hornet too, so there's that.
And but the Preacher is the one where he lost me.
I was gonna say the Preacher's the one where I was gonna say the Boys.
Yeah,
on
I was a hardcore fan of Seth Rogen. I loved everything he did right up until Preacher. that moment in time, then I was lost to him. Or he was dead to me, or how you want to put it.
However you want to put it, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't get Preacher.
No, I thought he did. I would have thought that he did, but he didn't. Far from it.
Indeedy do. I did not watch it, so I couldn't tell you. SJ Shady 0169 says Donnie doesn't sound like a teenager. He sounds like he's 5 years old. Yeah, it's so bad that people are wondering, is he a girl? Or is it a girl? What's the deal? But no, it's actually 4 boys doing the voice.
Well, could he be trans?
No, it'd have to be Raphael because he's angry.
Could he be a they them in this version?
This is the voice cast right here. I don't know which one's which, but
I was about to ask. Please point out which one is Donnie to me.
I'm gonna guess the one in the bottom right is Raph, and I'm gonna guess the one on the top right is Donatello. That's my guess.
I would have guessed the one.
I don't know for sure. I'd have to look. I don't know. But I know the one kid, he's in Mighty Ducks, and I don't remember him sounding like that. And the other kid don't look like he'd sound like that either. The one on the top right looks the youngest, is my guess.
Well, remember, these kids voiced this role maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
That too, or at least a year ago, maybe.
No, but with computer animation stuff, 2 years minimum.
Well, this has only been announced for a while.
Yeah, it was announced like 2 years ago. It takes a long time to make a cartoon, even a computer animated one. So puberty happens, right? So if they filmed the Mighty Ducks post the Ninja Turtles, they might not sound the same.
Yeah, I have.
They also pitched them up because you can, if you listen with headphones to the trailer when the turtles are talking, you can hear like digital manipulation in their voices. So they clearly pitched them up a little bit on top of it. So
they do that with all voice acting. There's always modifications on there.
Well, you can hear it. Like you can hear the digital sound in it. It's pretty obvious. But anyway. Yeah. Moving on, we also have a super chat from Callum Lyle who says, on the ugly duckling, just don't turn into Dorian Gray. That was for you, Script.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Master Clockwork who says, I looked at April and can't get Wanda Sykes' voice out of my head. Yeah, definitely she don't sound like that, but yeah. Granite Man says, my mother, the car was better than Discovery. You're not wrong. DCB Titan says, largest problem right now is that studios are listening to people that cry, we want representation. I don't see myself in media. These people aren't the most, these people are the most uninteresting people on the planet. Well, there's that. And not only that, they're representing like some of the smallest minorities on the planet. And I don't even mean by skin color. I'm talking about like everything else.
And they are now the most overrepresented on the planet. Because right now, just look at your average Hollywood movie, what have you. There's no longer representation. There is wild over-representation that no longer reflects the natural diversity of, well, anywhere really.
Right. Case in point, I was going to say is that whole Netflix thing that came out when they flat out said in the same sentence that not only are they already over-representing the gay community on Netflix, they want to do double that or whatever it was. So it's like you're catering to, already over-catering to an audience that doesn't exist. So now you're going to double down on that. All right. Good luck. It's like a restaurant that makes something that people don't like, and they think that if they just keep making it, people will eventually change their tastes. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how the force works. Eventually, you got to come up with something people want. You know, I've seen enough of those Gordon Ramsay.
Well, let them find out the hard way. We'll just let them find out and laugh in the process.
No, and I bring it up on purpose because I don't know if you've ever watched any of these Kitchen Nightmare shows or whatever, but that's the number one thing. All these, like when he comes in and butt heads with the chefs, they think they're serving something good to the public, and he has to convince them that no, this is shit that you're serving to the public, right? And you may think it's good, And you can sit there and try and convince yourself it's good all fucking day long and try to shove it down people's throats, but they're not going to like it. All they're going to do is keep walking out the door, which is what they're doing. And we're seeing the exact same thing here. So
cue the footage of Bob Iger telling Disney employees, we just can't lose that. We can't lose our messaging. It's the exact same thing.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's exact same rhetoric. It's that same fucking mentality that, oh, sooner or later people will come around to it. And that's kind of what their excuse has been, right? You know, I've even heard people like Kathleen Kennedy say, we're not making Star Wars and stuff like that for people for today. We're making it for the future. And this is what I was trying to tell people before is they literally think that this is the mentality that's going to take over in the future. So even though it's not popular now, it will be later, right? They think that someday somebody's going to look back on this and praise it like I hoist praise upon things like In the Heat of the Night and things like that as cultural milestones, right? And they think in the future we're going to go back and look at like crap like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever and go, oh, they had the right idea there. We just didn't see it all this time. You know what I mean?
More likely, we'll look back on this era as we look back on the Riefenstahl. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know what that is because that's some weird thing that's like Cthulhu.
Propaganda. It's propaganda from that little strife in Germany back in the 40s.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. You're just talking German stuff. I don't know. Yeah. You could have said I liked men for all I know. I didn't want to agree.
Well, I'm sure quite a few in the audience will know Leni Riefenstahl.
They may, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You're just making me hungry because it sounds like a German dish. Shirogami says, in Soviet Russia, there was an illicit trade in samizdat novels, if I'm saying that right, which had censored passage pasted back in. Okay, so this was when we were quickly discussing the censoring of books. So evidently, Shirogami is telling us about a Russian novel that had been censored, and then they pasted back in the uncensored parts. Now, would people had done that themselves, or was this something that eventually happened when things fell down later on in the Soviet Union? I wonder. That's a good question. Neil says with 9.99 super chat. How you doing, Neil? Says I rewatched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's amazing how well that holds up. A good story with a message that affects everyone. What Disney and Hollywood used to be, not incoherent pandering crap. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Puss in Boots, and it's still doing well considering it's out on home video now.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I just saw like the Critical Drinker's review and his synopsis. It was like, whoa, that's pretty genius, actually. So I look forward to checking it out.
I'm surprised you haven't watched it in your household. Yeah, at least 500 times. With young kids around, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, well, these days I like to vet anything new before it gets shown in this household.
Well, that's smart. That is very smart. That's one luxury I didn't have to, I had, I guess, when my kid was growing up, is that there was still most of the stuff. I mean, I did monitor a lot of it, but at least then this kind of thing wasn't such a problem yet. And luckily at that point, he was more into like PBS Kids than he was like Nick Jr. and all that stuff, to where Nickelodeon was starting to become very obnoxious at that point, like with a lot of the fart jokes and stuff. Paulus Plain sends in 200 Norwegian krona. Thank you so very much. Says the Ghostbusters is a retelling of the Three Musketeers. Winston Zedmore and D'Artagnan seeks out to become the fourth Ghostbuster and Musketeer. The fresh new blood must flow for the glory of the group. Merry Christmas. I see the comparison, but at the same time,
that's an interesting observation right there.
Yeah.
The big difference is Winston really didn't necessarily want to be a Ghostbuster because they were Ghostbusters. He just wanted a fucking job.
And he's also the same age. Like D'Artagnan was significantly younger.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of thing. And that's where I'm saying, like, I see the comparison, but D'Artagnan, on the other hand, was like, he wanted to be a musketeer because of the, how honorable they were and all that kind of stuff. And his father was one and all that kind of, the whole thing that went along with it all, and all that business. So
it's ironic is that they were swordsmen that had a musket on.
That's true.
They get
never
one
fucking
shot
thought of that.
Swords.
I never thought of that until he just said it. That's true. Mega J says Ginger Lives Matter and stop the redhead hate. I agree. Mm-hmm. The incompetent unemployed Alex Kurtzman is gone. Says, why is Ron Moore not at Marvel and Star Wars writing the ship?
He's too expensive, and he's at a place in his career where he can do whatever the heck he wants. In fact, he's doing I think he's doing a Swiss Family Robinson remake, and he's supposedly doing another period piece show, because I think For All Mankind is completed or concluded.
I'm not sure. There's your answer, I guess. Midwest Finest says, besides Hollywood, is there still room for younger traditional trained actors in the next generation can avoid the traps, i.e. mentors? Well, it's a very good question, Midwest Finest. Script, is there anything from your point of view of writing that you can
There's always going to be the best ones always rise to the top eventually. The problem is does the infrastructure right now within current day Hollywood want them? Because again, they're not looking at the talent or the merit, which is something that also Clifton was talking about earlier. They're looking about other things, like the ideology, your appearance. Do you fit the narrative that they're currently pushing at the moment? Hollywood.
Are you sufficiently victimized?
Yeah.
Are you in enough intersecting victim groups? Stuff like that, I should imagine.
Not only that, a lot of them don't want to be replaced because they like their level of living, and they realize that if they're not keep making the money that they're making, they're not going to have that anymore. They can't necessarily retire, and they also don't want to, because then they lose the power and they lose the accolades and they lose the attention. There's a big resistance to letting new generations in compared to anything that happened previous.
And then Olaf Van S says, what's a redhead that dyed its hair a transgender? Oh, but bump. Darksblade says, Ginger Roll, swap the N and G, subtle Hollywood. Yeah, well, this was brought up the other night, funnily enough. I think it was Jane Theory who brought it up. Anyway, Mario Trillo says, never underestimate a incompetent's ability to succeed in spite mountain of proof of their stupidity. Well, there's that too. It's very astute. Then we got Shadow Dancer the Red Mange, who said Battlefield Earth was butchered. It covered the first third of the book, day 92. It would need to be a TV series. John Travolta should have known better. Is there even a story in there that's worth telling, though?
Actually, yes, there is. Okay. Just for shits and giggles, I read Battlefield Earth, the whole book by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. It is, if you've gone into the Scientology rabbit hole and you read their leaked materials and stuff like that, so that you know more about Scientology than anyone who is actually in Scientology up until the level of OT3. If you then go and read Battlefield Earth, it's an incredibly interesting book, because I made like two observations in it. And one is that this whole thing is kind of like a fictionalized retelling of L. Ron Hubbard's view of the world and view of Scientology in particular, with the leading man being a thinly veiled version of himself who comes to some kind of realization that enables him to save the world. So just like seeing how he handles that, that's interesting. And another thing is observing him as a writer, because when he deals with characters and stuff, it's actually really plain and crap, especially female characters. I don't think I've ever seen as poorly written female characters as in that book. But the moment when you get to some kind of scheming, double-crossing, boy, then he comes alive as an author. And like that is described in so much detail and with so much passion and conviction. So it was just like interesting to read from that point of view. The story in itself, yeah, there is a story there. And it actually would be interesting as a miniseries in its own right. I agree, the movie does not do the novel justice to the extent of which there is such a thing. Though, it was always a passion project for John Travolta, and he'd been working on it for so many years. Initially, he started working on it when he was age appropriate for the young lead, who was played by, was it Barry Pepper? I think it was Barry Pepper, who played it in the end.
Yes.
And by the time he got it made, he had aged enough that now he had no choice but to play Turl, the evil henchman from the planet Cyclo, because like psychologists are evil. So yeah, it's an extremely interesting book, just not for the story. And the movie is well worth a retrospective one of these days. But I would like to team up with some prominent ex-Scientologist for it who knows a little bit something about it. Mike Rinder may have some recollections. So yeah, we'll see what we can do about that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the question, Shadowed Answer. And then we got Mihan here who says, "Hail, all wondering where Star Wars will go now. In the dumpster."
Yeah.
It will go out with a whimper.
The last hope for Star Wars was The Mandalorian, and it has got to get people interested again, because I don't see anything else.
Nobody's talking about it. That's the thing. Like,
yeah,
not on any huge
or this morning, and I don't see it trending anywhere.
No, and it didn't even trend last week when it premiered. That's the problem. It has lost its luster. It is not. And I'm not going to say it was all Gina Carano's fault at all. I think the bigger thing was there was this huge gap between the second season and this season of Mandalorian. You had a lot of people.
Gina Carano, I think that didn't help, though.
It didn't help, but it also. I mean, as far as the general public, I don't think they were paying much attention to that. I think what they did notice, though, is that there was a lack of Mandalorian. I don't think nearly enough people checked into Boba Fett as one thing they were hoping for, or most people checked out before it was relevant to Mandalorian. Because that's one of the things I've had some people come to me with is the confusion of the show. It's like, when did he get the baby back? Where's Luke? And all this kind of stuff. Like, clearly you didn't watch the Boba Fett show. So they kind of really snafu'd this in a way, if you ask me. It's kind of been ruined, even though however you want to put it, because I think it was a result of Gina being excised from the story that they ended up having to take 2 or 3 episodes of Boba Fett and make them de facto Mando episodes. But honestly, they should have just done that in the beginning of this season. I don't understand why that was in Boba Fett.
I don't even think Gina Carano's presence would have saved the show anyways.
No, I don't think that's the point, though. Like I said, the bane of its existence is the baby. And that could have been, and Script's right, is that could have been a clear result of somebody at the studio going, "What are you doing?" Favreau was probably going, "Well, I'm getting him out of the show for a while because I got other stuff I want to do." And they're like, "You're fucking insane. Get that baby back in the show." Because none of that makes sense from any outside perspective, inside perspective. Why would you do what you did? Why would you send him off at the end of season 2 to steal 3 episodes of Boba Fett to have him come back to the Mandalorian? And then we come to learn at the beginning of Mandalorian, it's been 2 years since then, right? None of this is really making any structural sense here, because you're doing nothing but confuse your core audience, which is kind of left because they haven't had a Mandalorian season in almost 2 years.
Yeah. No, it's one of the same big mistakes that J.J. Abrams did on Star Trek. Waited too long between the first 2 movies. Many people forget that. It wasn't that everything was dead after the 2009 movie. No, that actually created a lot of excitement. What killed it was that they lost all the momentum in the 4 years until Into Darkness, and then Into Darkness told the wrong story.
It took them 4 years to tell that terrible story, too. That's the other part.
Yeah. And I see something similar here as well. They waited too long between seasons, and then they kind of told the wrong story, or the bringing the baby back certainly suggests that they may be telling the wrong story. We haven't seen that yet, though. So
yeah, I don't understand the motivation there.
Maybe they can pull a rabbit out of the hat and save it all in the end, but I would not.
Because I think the logical place to go with it would have been just do a baby Grogu cartoon, with him and Luke, and you just have it be the cutesy thing that it sells, right? Take that away from Mandalorian because people were griping anyway. Clearly the whole thing was he was going to go with the whole what's her name? Boca Raton, whatever fuck her name is.
Katie Sackhoff.
Yeah. That character. They're clearly supposed to be dealing with this Black Saber thing, and they're starting to, but it's kind of meandering into it. I don't get it, what they're doing with it. So I don't know. I haven't seen the new episode yet. Maybe it gets better. Hitchhiker 40. I've heard. Yeah, it doesn't. I was trying to be optimistic. Hitchhiker 42 says, is the Punisher to be renamed the Harsh Talker? Well, here we go, Andre. Here's what you've been waiting for. The topic that I know not everybody's a big fan of, but you are, and one of the establishing pillars of Midnight's Edge, the Punisher. Bernthal is strongly rumored, I guess is the word we're going to say for now, even though it hasn't been confirmed, to return. This is something that's been in talks for a while. Give us your roundabout take on this whole business.
I'm a huge fan of the Punisher. The Punisher may be my single most favorite Marvel character. So obviously I want to see the character done right. I was reasonably happy with Bernthal's portrayal in the Netflix series, especially Daredevil Season 2. Slightly less so in the Punisher Netflix, like the dedicated Punisher series, because that took a little bit too much from the 2004 movie, which took some massive liberties to the Tom Jane one. But all of that, I think, is going to be much, much better compared to what Marvel today might be inclined to do with the Punisher. Maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they will do him right. What we do know is that John Bernthal, he was very adamant before that the only way he was coming back was if they do it right. It was very, very important to him that the character be done right, that the character appeal to law enforcement, that the character appeal to military. All of this is extremely important to him. Whereas if you look at Marvel in the comic side of things, they have now gone out of their way to make sure that the character no longer appeals to law enforcement, that he no longer appeals to military. Like, they changed his logo, they made him a ninja and all that. Well, actually, they made him a member of the Hand, however temporary it may be. And they did it all specifically because the Punisher is now a problematic character for them. Because, you know, the horrible people in law enforcement and stuff, from their point of view, actually like him. Now, that leaves me worried. What are they going to do with him now on Disney+? John Bernthal, we had heard earlier that he's back. And now we're hearing this starting to come from more publications, which leads me to believe that it's true. Now, that tells me one of two things. Either Bernthal has seen the scripts and he's happy with what they're doing, so he signed on, or they gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse either way. I'm hoping it's the former. With Marvel and Disney Plus being what they are, I'm fearing it's the latter. And for the first time, I am not looking forward to the Punisher in live action, just out of fear of what Marvel might do, especially with the caliber of the writers that we know they have attached to Daredevil on Disney Plus. Script, what say you of the caliber of those writers, and what do you think they might do with the character like the Punisher? And also, do you think that Bernthal actually will be able to sway them in the right direction?
Okay, so that's 3 questions.
Take it away.
Well, one, the writers will do whatever the production tells them to, because they're not very acclaimed writers yet. So whatever the producers want, the writers will do. Bernthal, on the other hand, has the power to just walk away, and I think Disney is arrogant enough to not even care if he walks away. But I would say that he's probably going to do whatever he can to try and retain as much of the character that he enjoyed playing as he could. There might be a tug of war there. I don't know. I don't know. And what was the third question? Sorry.
I think you pretty much covered it in the
okay.
answers that you already gave. Dr. Longdongler says, or they blatantly lied to him to get him on board. Could that be an option? Tell him what they're going to do, then write the scripts and do something else? Could he walk away in that
force
case?
the contract?
Well, the other part too is that he can always walk away, and if he's a smart actor, he'll make sure that he has something where he can walk away without having to worry about any financial penalties, because that's what most actors do, especially when they get to like the B level to A level status. That Bernthal, he is hovering around because he is not like a huge A-lister actor, but he is a popular enough actor, and he can pick his roles at this moment. So I would be surprised if his agents and management team didn't negotiate a way for him to walk away if he is unsatisfied with anything. So even if they did lie to him, and he's read the script and didn't like where it was going, he could leave if he so wished, and Disney then has to scramble to get either someone to come in and play the new Punisher, or consider rewriting the script to appease the talent that's going to draw audiences into the show.
What do you think, though? Do you think that Punisher fans have reason to worry? Or should we be excited and take it as a good sign that Jon Bernthal is there?
I would actually always be on the side of caution with this. Again, actors will love to work, need to work, want to work, and only in certain situations do they actually have the power to walk away. I think Bernthal is in that position. So if he is committed to this and he's going forward, he's either honoring the character or maybe he's swallowed the Kool-Aid. And I don't know which one it is this time, because I don't follow his social media. I rarely come across interviews he makes, so I don't really understand who he is as a person yet, in order to make an educated guess in that regard.
I believe he made an appearance on Joe Rogan that may be worth checking out. Where he spoke about his earlier experiences and everything. So I've only listened to bits and pieces of that, so I'll make it my business to listen to all of that. And I'd love to hear your take after that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Tom, how about you? Do you think that the Punisher is going to be butchered beyond recognition, or could we be getting something good here?
I don't know. Here's the thing. The other part of the news that this came of was that Foggy and I can't remember the other character they mentioned. I believe
Paige.
Paige, that's right. Those actors are not set to return, but they did make the excuse that they just might not have anything to do with this story. That's plausible. But we already know this is ground that's been treaded on. They also bring up that the Punisher had nothing to do with the original Born Again story or whatever. And as we pointed out from the start, Andre, this is, and I put a post of this out yesterday on Twitter. This was and always was going to be 25% Daredevil from the start. We knew this, and regardless of whether or not Chapek went out of his way, which makes no sense to me, to buy the rights back to the Netflix show, they're not going with that because Feige don't want to. He clearly wants to put his tramp stamp on this fucking thing, one way or the other. Because he is not happy with whatever happened before. Maybe it's because the first season got so much praise. I don't get it. What it is that he has against that incarnation. I mean, clearly he doesn't have enough against it not to recast it, but he wants to change it. And that's what I predict is going to happen here. Everything is going to come out 25% dumber, as pointed out by Mecha J here in the chat. And I think also the Punisher is going to be dumbed down. There's no way he's going to be allowed to have his logo. At least not the one that we know. They may have been able to work within the confines of what Bernthal wants for the character. But I also am curious, you say you can walk away script, but can he? Is he contracted to this character? We know in a lot of these...
I just addressed that, man. I told him it would be foolish if his agents and management team didn't put in his contract a waiver that allowed him to walk away.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's the case or not. We have no idea what's in those contracts.
That's right.
And what I was getting to, my point is when these actors do sign up, we know they get signed up for big, huge, multiple things. Now that's up to the discretion of Marvel to use them or not, clearly, if they want to or not. But that was my big question is, what do we know we're getting out of this? We won't know until we see it. I was a little bit more excited when we saw Chapek buy the rights from Netflix back and actually move the show over to Disney Plus. That was like, interesting move. And then we saw that Daredevil, unlike every other Disney Plus show, not just the Marvel ones, was actually getting what I would consider a close to standard season order of 18 episodes, which has been unheard of in the streaming age. So they were clearly getting behind this. So I had some excitement for it at first, but then things kind of went downhill after, Hawkeye series and now, knowing what we know about everything in the end today with Iger coming back. It's like, ain't no way that's changing now.
Yeah, as for me, I hope for the best here. I hope for the best, but I'll take script's advice and proceed with caution. And I don't believe we'll be getting anything good here.
Right. So let's see what else you guys are talking about in the chat. We've got Professor Gray, who says a trans Ninja Turtle definitely identifies as a samurai lizard. Well, Mondo Gecko is in the movie. Paul Rudd's doing that voice, evidently. So there you go. The only one we haven't heard anything about being in the movie yet is Shredder and Krang. But the Technodrome was in the background of one of the early leaked concept arts. So anyway. Austin Khan says the amazing thing about Disney is that they never put a Grand Admiral Ray Sloan in the sequel trilogy as a main character for being progressive. I don't even know who this is.
I'm not familiar with this one.
EU, yeah, not a character I'm even familiar with. And 6 is gone, so she can't give us the 411 on that now. I'm assuming it's somebody who's
probably someone from Legends, who Kathleen Kennedy made it pretty clear was all fan fiction right now, and they're not beholden to. And then she later said that, well, there's no source material, so I guess they just didn't get around to inventing Grand Admiral Ray Sloan.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with Admiral Dala, who I think was Grand Moff Tarkin's lover. And she kind of tried to take over the Empire in the EU.
Admiral Dala. Amidala. Admiral.
Was she hot?
Amidala?
I believe she was a 40-year-old ginger who, was quite attractive.
Oh, okay. So,
but also very
in the movie version, she'd be gender bent then. Or
I mean, Jessica Chastain could probably play her.
Yeah. Shadow Dance of the Red Mage says Battlefield Earth would be a 5-season show. The gas drone alone would be 3 episodes. P.S. I am not an ex. What do you mean, ex-Scientologist?
Yeah, he means ex-Scientologist.
I figured as much, yeah.
Yeah, and if you were, that would be fine. I'm sure but know that we have had both exes and people still in listening. So, yeah.
I don't make as much fun of it as some people do. It is what it is. It's if you really step back and look at it all, is it really much different than believing some of the other things that certain religions believe? At the end of the day, no, exactly. You kind of just look at it from a certain angle. It's like, really? I mean, I'm not trying to put down any religion. I'm just saying
the big difference is that in this case we know who made it, and we know the motivations behind it.
Exactly.
And
that's the difference.
And most importantly, we know who co-opted it and made it even worse.
And not only that, I mean, well, they're pretty blatant about just, taking shit from their followers. Like, they're upfront about it pretty much.
Yeah, that would be the one who made it even worse in a way that would have even made L. Ron Hubbard roll in his grave if he knew.
No, but at the end of the day, I'm really not going to make any more fun of it than I would anybody else's religion. It's just, I was raised Catholic. I got no room to talk. Still Messiah says, just published, Odin is dated back to year 400.
Okay. I think what Snail Messiah means is that there is now found some artifact which makes a reference to Odin that's dated back to that year. So then you have older historic records than we had before. I still believe the oral tradition goes back much, 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 much longer than that. But hey, stuff keeps getting older, as Graham Hancock likes to say. So yeah, very cool. Very glad they found that, and I do believe they'll eventually may find even more and even older things.
There you go. And with that, I believe we're caught up on the super chats. Let me double check on the mod side of things to make sure we didn't get any more member chats. I don't see any in here. Let me refresh Twitter because the messages don't like to refresh on their own. We did get some new stuff here, but it is, I think we did get them all. Okay. So thank you so much, mod team, for all that. And thank you, Six, again, for being here earlier. We appreciate it. Thank you to Clifton and Paul and you, Script, of course, for being here as guests today. We appreciate that as well. Do you have anything coming up, Script, that you want to plug?
I just dropped on my Patreon yesterday my review of the Coconuts, the Marx Brothers' first debut film.
Did you put a lime in it?
Did I put a line in it?
A lime in the coconut. Never mind.
No, it's the Coconuts.
I know. You put the lime in the coconut and you drink it all up. Never mind. It's the song from...
Oh, okay.
You never heard the song?
No.
Seriously? Am I the only one here?
Which song would that be?
You put the lime in the coconut. You drink it all up.
Oh, you said lime. I thought you said lime.
I said lime. I did say lime. Yeah.
No, like that letter N, not M.
Where is N coming? I
heard line. Like you draw a line in the sand. I'm like, what?
Everybody in the chat's getting it.
I also did hear lime. I still never heard that song.
Seriously, you've never seen Reservoir Dogs?
I have.
Yeah, but I don't remember a song like that.
It's the end credits song.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
How am I the only one who knows the coconut song here? Jesus.
It's definitely not used in the movie, that's for sure.
It's in the Muppets too. Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty. I mean, some of us know Leni Riefenstahl, others know the Muppet song, and that's where we perfectly complement each other.
Brother bought a coconut. He bought it for a dime. He brought another one. Yeah, Jesus. It's probably Nilsson's most famous song, actually. Shit. And with that, we will wrap this up. I don't think we're gonna have a 4K for you today. I've got so much other stuff going on right now, but I will see you guys on Mead tomorrow. Other than that, was there anything, Andre, we had to plug on the way out the door?
Stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Working on that Star Trek video and plenty else coming out. So yeah, just stay tuned.
All right, there we go. Let's where's the soggy marsupials at?
Yeah, let's bring on the koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given.